Could we begin with uh, the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. The mission of the City School District of Albany is to educate and prepare all students for college and career, citizenship and life, and partnership with our diverse community. First up is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Wilkins.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to begin my report tonight by congratulating our two new board members-elect, Vicki Smith and Shadir Shatur. Thank you, thank you. Vicki and Shadir were elected last Tuesday and will begin their 4-year terms in January. First things first, for Vicki, though she will be completing her current term over the next 6 weeks. And it won't feel much different having Shadir on this side of the table beginning in January either. He's been a regular attendee at our board meetings over the past 18 months. I applaud his commitment to our students and look forward to working with him as well, so thank you. What will be very different beginning in January, we'll be holding these meetings without my partner in crime next to me, Dr. Brandon. Dr. Brandon is coming to an end of her 8th year on the board. She decided not to seek re-election for a 3rd term, as you know. Dr. Brandon, even though I know you told us that you won't be too far away when it comes times when the board ends, I speak for everyone here tonight when I say very, very sincerely, you will be deeply, deeply missed. Deeply missed. But I think that she may not be going too far. I think Mr. Hogan and I, might have had some little arm twisting over here, so she might be back, but we'll stay tuned. Your contribution to our school district and your steadfast support for all of our students has been exemplary. We are truly grateful for your service, so thank you so much. As you know, we received the first results from our water testing we have conducted at all of our buildings this fall in accordance to the New York State law. We received results for 10 of our elementary schools. 6 of those had no positive test, and all outlets were cleared. For 4 schools had positive tests at some outlets, and we went to work immediately this week to correct those sources. At Giffen, we had 23 of 146 outlets tested above the new state limit of 15 parts per billion. At Toast, we had 13 of 106 outlets tested positive for results. At Arbor Hill, 3 of 60 outlets came back positive, and at Montessori, 1 of 60 outlets tested positive. All 40 of these outlets have been shut down. We will be identifying and correcting the problem over the next 6 weeks. Once that work is done, we will test the outlets again. All outlets will be kept out of service until they've been cleared through state-approved processes. At all times throughout this process, the district will ensure that all students and staff have adequate supply of water for drinking and cooking. We are awaiting test results from our final 2 elementary schools, which is Ash and North Albany Academy, as well as all of our secondary schools and administrative buildings. You can find all this information and much more at albanyschools.org. We will continue to provide updates and information as they become available to us. On Wednesday afternoon, I attended a reception at Albany High School to thank the faculty and the staff for their outstanding work in helping the school meet the majority of its demonstrable progress indicators for 2015-16. In other words, Albany High is on track to exit receivership if it can show similar progress this school year. This is really wonderful news. I want to commend everyone at Albany High for all their efforts. Our second receivership school, which is the school we're in right now, Schuyler Achievement Academy, also met the majority of its progress indicators last year. This is great news as well. So we give our principal, Mr. John Murphy. This is great news as well, and our team at Schuyler deserves a shout out for all their efforts. Like Albany High, Schuyler is on track to follow the footsteps of Hackett School and exit their receivership. We are not resting on our laurels. Of course, there's more work to do at both schools and district-wide. but I am confident that our leadership team, our staff are on track towards positive outcomes at our 2 receivership schools, and that all our schools will show progress in 2016-17 school year. Just a reminder for today's principals meeting, Karen Bechtel reviewed key points of the district's wellness policy with our administrators. Since many food-centric holidays are ahead, I also will be sending an email reminder and a fact sheet about the wellness policy to all district staff members. In early months of 2017, we'll be working on a program or a plan to educate our families and communities about this policy as well. I do believe that we have some copies at the front table, so if anyone wants to see the one-sheet facts, it's there. A reminder that there are many opportunities to still come for any and all community members to learn about our proposal to renovate 50 North Lark. Those renovations will be the topic of our public vote on January 10th. We have more on January vote during tonight's meeting. Our first community forum for 50 North Lark proposal is scheduled for Tuesday, November 29th from 6:30 to 7:30. We'll hold that meeting at 50 North Lark. 3 more community meetings are scheduled in December, along with the second opportunity to tour the building on Saturday, December 10th. We also have been meeting with staff and families at each school that would be affected by our plan for 50 North Lark. Ron Lesko and Eileen Leffler are giving presentations right now at North Albany Academy Parent University meeting. A flyer is available with all materials here tonight, and please visit again albanyschools.org for more information about the proposal and the January 10th vote. A reminder that parent-teacher conferences and Thanksgiving recess are coming up next week. Parent-teacher conference day is Wednesday. There will be no school, but our administrative offices will be open. If you haven't already signed up to meet your teacher, please remember to do so. These are great opportunities for families, parents, guardians, teachers to talk about the child's progress and are so very important for everyone involved. All of our schools and offices will be closed next Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving recess. I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe holiday with your loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. The Albany Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that we can better understand your views. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed at public sessions of the board. When recognized by the board president, please state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers will be notified by the board president when their time has expired. We take public comment very seriously, and careful notes will be taken. However, the board generally does not respond while the meeting is in public session. First up tonight is Freda Peretz. Oh, Dr. Dr. Wilkins, was there a presentation by Philip Scholar? Not tonight. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, why don't we let Ms. Peretz go first? But okay. All right. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for not having the. Otherwise, I have to do Brooklyn. How's that? Okay. So I won't take the full time. I have 2 things I wanted to ask. After the walk from New York City for the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, I just want to know what is happening here and what the board is doing to fight for that money. So I assume at some point I'll get a response. And the other thing is, does this district now have a vision for community schools? And if so, has it been shared with anybody? Has it been shared with parents? And what the plan would be for parent input? What I wanted to say about that, there's been a lot of work done on community schools, especially in New York State, downstate and some in Schenectady and all. That's very different from the way these the schools, community schools were years ago. So I would hope that if there's a committee and if you need any help, I'm willing to help with that. But we'll also put this in writing so maybe we can get a response. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peretz. That concludes public comment.
Okay. I was remiss. I want to introduce the most fantastic building leader, which is Mr. John Murphy of the wonderful school of Schuyler Achievement Academy. Come on up, Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you for the chance to speak tonight. I never met a microphone that I didn't like. A year ago, I had the opportunity, the very first time, to welcome you to Schuyler Achievement Academy. And when I look at it now, a year in the rearview mirror, it kind of seems silly because all of you knew so much more about Schuyler then than I did. I was the new turnaround principal coming to discover Albany City Schools and this particular wonderful little school. And at that time, I said to you that it was a misnomer to call this a turnaround school because what I discovered then was a school that was very much on track. And when you come into our lobby, you see train tracks as part of the theme of the school, and it's perfect for this school because it was a school so very much on track. Because before I got here, the work had begun. And what I inherited was a faculty that is second to none. And I will say that till the cows come home because it is true. And I discovered a school that was very much living its mission to create a positive, child-centered learning environment that sets high standards for achievement and success. All staff, families, and communities work together to foster a nurturing and enriching atmosphere that will produce lifelong learners and involved, respectful, and responsible citizens. But who are we? There's lots of data on that board. There's numbers that represent class size, but behind every number you are looking at is a unique and special child. And I say that on purpose because the strength of our teachers is recognizing the data that speaks to the learning profile of that child and then creating lesson plans that meet their needs. I've never seen anything like it before. And we are blessed because we have two outstanding academic coaches, Rita Flos and Ann Miller, who work so closely with myself and my partner, Michelle Bridgewater, who is also second to none, so that we can constantly zero in on the needs of every learner, meet those needs, and really grow them and reach towards proficiency. So as we go on, where are we? There we go. Here's the good news. When I was here a year ago, I quoted my favorite president, Theodore Roosevelt, and I said, "Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, although checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in that gray twilight that knows no victory or defeat." I'd like you to see victory. I'd like you to see receivership on the move. If you look at those lines, you will see all of the baseline data that the state set forth for us and the progress targets that they gave us. Not only did we meet those targets, we blew them out of the water. And as a result, we made 90% out of 100% in our receivership. And I want to thank my teachers. I want to thank the support staff. We have a support center here with psychologists, social workers, Parsons, Whitney Young, a homeschool coordinator who is solid gold, and faculty. And I will single out one teacher who's representing all of them tonight, Leah Gaetano, because they are making it happen every day that we are here. Now, with all of that, and you see the data, and you've been given the data, and we're going to celebrate next week. You think the high school celebrated? We're going to celebrate next week, and Stewart is so proud of us. They're giving us an ice cream social for the entire school and not charging us a penny. So we are all part of this community. We are not just the little school that could, we are the little school that is getting it done. I am so proud to be its principal. I am so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder, not just with the teachers, but with parents. The level of care and the partnership that has emerged over the past year inspires us on a daily basis. The conversations, the numbers of meetings, the interactions, and then the outreach. You want to talk about differences between last year and this year? The number of home visits, the number of special relationships and engagements that we are creating so that a family doesn't just have its child educated, but they are being fed. We are engaging them with social services. We are making sure the coats are there. We're doing what so many others are doing it, but we're doing it with love and respect. I love listening to Dr. Wilkins talk about the kids because it's full of energy and it's full of love. I love the colleagues behind me when they speak because it is full of energy and passion and the thing I enjoy most, vision and creativity. Skylar is doing that every day. Today was good, tomorrow will be better, and the day after that, you just hold on. That's what we are doing. And that's, as we go on, why we find reasons to celebrate. We're proud of our students, and we are building bridges to this community. We're going out to Harvest Fest, and we're having parents come in. Last year, we had a Harvest Fest in this room and in the cafeteria, and it was great. It was great. I'd never been to a Harvest Fest before. We had it last night. We had 120 people here last night. We were rocking and rolling. We had faculty cooking chili. We had kids playing. We had donations. And it's not that it's special. The specialness of it is it has become what's expected. And the energy and the joy, it's connected to a vision and a trajectory for success. Thank you for allowing me to come to Albany. And thank you, because together, we're going to be off receivership. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, routine consent. Can I get a motion to approve routine consent? Ms. Smith, and a second by Ms. Roach. Are there set-asides? Okay, bear with me for 1 sec. Ms. Sadler.
I need to set aside Human Resources Addendum A11, small a.
Okay, that's Human Resource Addendum A11, small a. Thank you. Any others? Ms. Smith.
Letter M, and it's the high school ski club.
Okay, letter M, high school ski club. Any other set-asides? Dr. Brandon. Okay, that's N on the current agenda. Albany High School varsity baseball trip. Yes. Dr. Brandon. Any other set-asides? Okay, I'd like to set aside the substitute resolution, which is part of letter O. And budget transfers over 10,000. And the field trip to Costa Rica. Okay, so that's routine consent minus letter L, M, N, some parts of letter O, and letter S. All those in favor of approval minus those several. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, let's take Ms. Adler's first, which is human resource item from the addendum, A11, small a. Can I get a motion to approve that? Ms. Adler, and a second, Ms. Smith. Discussion, Ms. Adler.
There's no discussion. This is akin to the prior set-aside that Ms. Smith had done for her daughter, so my son is on for approval for lifeguarding. So I need to be able to abstain on the
Abstain.
vote.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that's everyone except Ms. Adler, and Ms. Adler will abstain. Okay. Can we, while we're on the substitutes, or while we're on letter O, can we handle the substitutes, which was my set aside? Can I get a motion to approve the substitute resolution? Ms. Smith, and second, Ms. Adler. And again, if you'll bear with me for a second. Since it is a resolution, I just wanted to call attention to exactly what it does, which is increase the pay for our substitutes and establishes a substitute teaching assistants pay scale. That's generally what I wanted to do. So, all those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll do Albany High School varsity baseball field trip. Can I get a motion to approve that? Ms. Smith, second. Ms. Adler, Dr. Brandon, discussion?
I just have a question. I realize on this field trip that there will be no cost to the 20 students that are involved, but what I'd like to know is there an overall cost for this trip? Because nowhere on this form is there a number, a cost number. I know it's going to be, the students will probably not have to pay anything, but it's going to cost somebody something somewhere, and I didn't see any, unless I missed it. There's no cost anywhere on this form at all, and it gives a nice itinerary as to what they're going to be doing every day, but nowhere on the itinerary is there any cost. So if you all could just check with whoever's in charge of this one and see if they can stick a cost to it, even though we know the students won't have to pay for anything. Thank you, Lori.
So can we table that and bring that back next time? Is that what you'd like to do, Dr. Brandon? Yes. Okay. Do we have to have a motion to table? We do, right? Can I get a motion to table this? Ms. Smith, second by Ms. Adler. All those in favor? And that's the Albany High School baseball field trip. Okay, Albany High School ski club field trip, letter M. Could I get a motion to approve? Ms. Smith, and a second by Ms. Savage. Discussion, Ms. Smith.
Sure. And I generally don't have a problem with this. I was just wanting to be sure, and I think Ms. McKenna was responsible for this item. I just really did want to be sure that every student who is interested in going can go, and I know that the leader says so, but my concern was that he was not very favorable towards fundraising and preferred a payment schedule, and that's fine. I just want to know how you're going to get the money to make the payment schedule. So I just wanted to encourage fundraising.
Yeah, and I have been assured that no student will be denied.
So just so you don't think we're sitting here not paying attention and doing our work as board members, I was looking at this and noticed that I'm listed as a chaperone and had no idea I was going on a ski trip January 6th to January 8th. So my youngest does go to ski trips, and I thought they were starting that week going to Jiminy, as they always do, and then they often go maybe in February and March. So I paid last year when they went to Jay. I'm going to recuse I'm going to abstain, but I just want you to know that I am as flummoxed as the rest of you are, because I had no idea that first weekend in January I was going anywhere, but I appreciate Tom Vacanti thinking I needed my dance card full.
Thank you, Ms. Adler. We have a motion on the floor to approve the Albany High School Ski Club field trip. All those in favor? Okay, that would be everybody except Ms. Adler, who is abstaining. Letter L, Albany High School Project Costa Rica field trip. That was my set aside. Can I get a motion to approve it? Ms. Smith, and a second by Ms. Adler. I know we adjusted some of the rules related to international travel. I'd just like to get some clarification around those. Yes, the Costa Rica trip. I don't have a specific question so much as what are the general guidelines around approval? I know it has to be an academic-related trip. I thought there was some change in that, in general, the board would not guarantee some aspect of the trip. So I don't exactly know my question, but.
I know we discussed at length whether we would take responsibility for approving trips that occur out of the country over the course of a school vacation. I remember that being a conversation that we had, and council did provide some guidance as to what role we are allowed to play. That's my recollection.
So the adjustments are just for non-school time trips?
Right, this actually, the Costa Rica trip generally goes during the school year and is run as part of, related to the school curriculum. So it's actually during school.
Okay, all right, so our adjustments were just for summer trips? Okay, gotcha, okay. The motion is on the floor for approval of the Costa Rica trip. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you. This looks like a pretty good one, Ms. Adler, right? Okay, next up, budget transfers over 10,000, which is my set aside. Can I get a motion to approve that? Ms. Adler, and a second. Ms. Roach, I just have one question, which was the transfer of, I don't have it exactly in front of me, but it was E-rate to computer purchases, and just a little clarification there.
The district actually gets E-rate aid. It comes through the telephone companies, and in order to take advantage of E-rate aid, we have to have a specific E-rate account. The funding availability changes from year to year, as does, they have to look at, we've been spending E-rate money every year for years, so there's some things you can't replace too quickly. So this entire E-rate account is actually controlled by our technology department that uses E-rate money exclusively for technology. In this case, they're suggesting that we're not getting as much aid, or we have too much in the account, so they want to transfer the money to just computer supplies. So it's all going toward computer technology. It's just transferring from the E-rate line to the supply line.
Okay, all right, Ms. Savage has a question too.
This is a question I'd asked by email, but I know there was an awful lot going on this week. But the equipment music transfer, which is on that same, could you just clarify what that is and what it really means?
There's a transfer for $20,000 from equipment music to instructional supplies music, and this is just an accounting thing. In order to record any expenses in equipment, the unit price must be $1,000 or more, and indeed there are instruments that cost more than $1,000. The music department wants to order other equipment and supplies which are below the $1,000 threshold. So and a lot of the instruments are under 1,000. So it's just a transfer, again, it's a counting thing. It's coming from equipment and going to supplies, really because of the $1,000 threshold required to use equipment
So are
lines.
these district-wide instruments or
District-wide.
school by school?
No, this is district-wide.
Okay.
And really, the music department would decide exactly which instruments they need, and then whether or not we need a transfer, depending on the cost levels.
And just to follow up a little bit as well, is this the $20,000 regarding the music instruments that were on the waiting lists that we received, or they're not included in this at all? Yes. okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Actually, I think it's closer to 40,000 that we're spending on the instruments, correct? First wave, yep.
How many instruments was that approximately?
We're about 55. Was it about 55?
Okay, great. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so I have one more question back to the computers. So it says additional computer supplies, but it feels like it's just a transfer from one line to another line.
It is, technology controls both, and we actually, they work closely with E-Rate's its own specialized thing. We actually use an E-Rate consultant in terms of what we can buy, when we can buy, where it can be placed. So this is from the technology department. It's all being spent within that department. It's just moving a line.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on budget transfers over $10,000? Okay, there's a motion to approve. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Can I interrupt?
Dr. Wilkins.
Yes, I want to, at this juncture, introduce our newest administrator. He's the assistant, he is now the new assistant principal at Myers Middle School, which is Mr. John Powell. So, John, wave to everybody. This is so happy. It is taking us 11 years to get an assistant principal, a second one at Myers. I'm so happy, so happy. But John, welcome to Albany City School District. You're a wonderful addition, and welcome to middle school. Yay! Thank you.
So, welcome, one more member of the Clean Shaven Club. Okay, next up, number 6, discussion action facilities. Wait, I'm looking at an old agenda here. Oh, okay, all right, it had change orders, and we don't have change orders. So, high school renovation project update. Here we go, Mr. Hogan.
Okay, we're inviting
And
back,
Mr. Peckham
yep, and Tina.
and Tina.
We're inviting back our that's right,
Masidi, right?
CTCS, yes.
Yes.
So they're going to give us an update and some follow-up on the last update that we had and then further discussions they've had. So here's the latest conceptual work.
Okay, a couple weeks ago when we were here, or maybe it was a month ago or so now, we talked about kind of giving an update on where we were at with the programming and how that was influenced the floor plans for the building. At this point in time, we are completing what we call the schematic design phase of the project. And that's where we've taken the conceptual designs that were done pre-referendum, gone out and met with teachers and staff and kind of developed the floor plans more, and then also started to develop the three-dimensional aspects of what the building is going to look like. And as we've talked, the building's going to be phased, so even within the schematic design, we're farther along with what phase one's going to be than the rest of the phases. And after tonight, our intention is to move into what we call design development on phase one, which is the next step of more detail and getting stuff ready to go into the final phases to be able to get that to state ed while we continue to refine the design of the other 3 phases of the plan. So tonight, Tina's going to take us through kind of those steps of where we've been and where we're at, and then we will be able to discuss some of the timeline going forward in the phasing of the project.
So I'm going to actually just update the board on some of the changes or some of the developments since we met a month ago. Since last month, we met with the music department again and reviewed the needs, and we have included one orchestra and band room for 125 students, a chorus room for the same amount of students, a recording studio that doubles as a music classroom, a MIDI lab, 3 small practice rooms, 1 large ensemble practice room. And what we were able to locate was an additional classroom that can also be used as a music classroom for music as well. So they'll share a classroom that is across from the new cosmetology that would not be utilized 100%. And also, the addition of the small theater into the plan opens up the band, opens up the stage to be used for band and orchestra as well. We also met with the athletic department again and talked through the total, the number of gym stations and the sizes, and they were okay with everything. We have 10 total gym stations. We also talked through all the offices and all of the smaller spaces that we need, so the athletic director, the secretary, the assistant director, and so on. We talked through the weight and fitness room. That's one really large space that will be divided into 2 with potentially a wall that can be opened up to use it as one large space or not. We talked some more details about the walking track and how to protect it from the gym below. We also met again with the guidance counselors to talk a little bit more about how guidance would work within the administrative suites for each academy. And what we learned was that they need a small lobby or common space where they can have students working on computers outside of their offices, so that's something that we're also going to include. One of the other things that you had asked was about the number of exits in the building, in the existing building versus what we will be including once the project is complete. So currently there are 21 doors that go from the interior to the exterior. Once the new Albany High School is complete, there will be 19. So we're reducing it by a couple. But if you can see, we're adding over 200,000 square feet. So it's the proportion is pretty good ratio.
One other thing that came up as a slight change as we were doing the guidance programming was the fact that we had called or been showing an in-school suspension room in each small learning community, and we got the feedback that largely because of staffing and they're seeing actually a reduction in the need for that we're looking at only having 2 or 3 for the building instead of 1 in each small learning community.
And actually, they're going to be located outside of the learning communities so that there's maybe no stigma attached to a particular learning community, but close to the administrative suites. So this is the site plan that was included in the schematic design report. And I don't know if I can't really zoom in on it, but what it shows is it shows that we have the main parking lot that we're now splitting, where 3/4 of it will be accessible from North Main and 1/4 of it will be accessible from Washington Avenue. So you can see that, is that a pointer? And also the access road that right now goes from North Main will remain, that it runs behind the back alongside the fields. We're going to be adding some parking along that, as well as a new parent drop-off loop, a proper drop-off loop, to separate the buses and the cars that are in there. And we're also able to get some parking spaces in that as well. The other difference also is that we're actually looping this road around, which will be controlled by a gate, so that, which is one of the things that is required also for fire safety. So that will access, it will allow for access all the way around the school, although the intention is not so much that cars will be driving through, because there will be gates that will be maintained. around the back. And you can also see that there's a small parking lot that we've added behind the pool, which would sort of double as a space for, I guess, to tailgate before football games.
Pre-football game events and,
Right, but also allows for some parking behind there as well. We're also, I think you can see there are these several small little boxes that are shown. There's a small storage room that's up at the top of the field. Then you can see the existing bleachers that are sort of in yellow, and behind that, the new restrooms and storage, and a concession booth kind of even below that, which would also act as the entrance. So you're seeing kind of two main paths that come in from Washington Avenue, one that's in gray that connects to the lot and wraps around, and then the other yellow one is sort of what we're looking at as the real pedestrian processional entrance into this new field and event space.
just one other thing on the site plan, you'll see this, we're kind of highlighting to develop a path connection so you can, there's been discussion that you might be able to share parking with St. Rose for certain events if you need extra parking. So we wanted to make sure that there was a path to make that connection there.
So the next few slides are essentially the floor plans that we saw last time we were here. They have not really changed too much. So I'm not going to actually go through them unless anyone has any particular questions. But what I will show is, if we continue, we did start to show a enlarged plan of the first phase, which is the new classroom addition, and it begins to show how the classrooms start to lay out and how the main administrative suite starts to lay out. And again, this is one of the floors that's fairly typical from floor to floor. So we actually started the discussions with the science department again to talk in more detail about the labs. So we have the quantities of chemistry versus physics versus general science. So we're actually in that process right now. Then the next few slides, as we've been developing, we've been talking a lot about the program and about how many spaces and quantities and how they lay out, but we've also really been focusing on the three-dimensional aspects of the building and what it's going to look like and how we're going to distribute daylighting throughout the building. So these drawings start to show what the building kind of looks like in 3D, kind of looking down so that you can see different aspects of it. So what you're seeing is the music and art addition on the left-hand side, which is kind of adjacent to that, the existing auditorium that you can see that we're actually refacing with new material, and then the new entrance just to the right of that. The entrance is a stepped plaza that brings you up to the main entrance, where there's a main vestibule for students and for visitors that brings you into the building. The corner where it's labeled Media Center, where you see a lot of glazing, is actually the new library in the Media Center, which we will be very visible to the public. And then you're starting to see around the corner the CTE spaces, and then how we begin to treat the existing classroom building with the fenestrations through the building. The next one just shows, it's looking from the back side, so you see the pool, and then behind that, the gymnasium on the left corner, the new classroom addition, and you can start to see how that is shaping up, as well as on the opposite corner, the music and art addition. And then the next slide just is actually, these are the elevations of the building. So these are as if you were looking straight on at the building from the north, from the south, and east and west. The main entrance, which is the south elevation, again, you can see the new classroom addition on the left. The taller building is the stage of the auditorium, and then the main entrance sort of centered on the building. So again, if anybody has any particular questions, we can talk through them.
Okay, does that complete the presentation?
No, the next thing is going to be phasing, so if there's anything from this point in terms of the building.
Okay, it looks like Ms. Adler has a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the breakout in terms of the number of science rooms, I guess my concern when you were talking about specifically chemistry rooms and then physics rooms is that one of the things that we'd done at the high school going back about 4 years, maybe, Ms. Wilson-Turner, 5 years, 4 or 5 years. One of the things we did at the times when we were obviously trying to balance the budget was that we started alternating classes so that not every year physics AP was offered and not every year chem AP was offered. And then as a means, and the way we dealt with that was to explain to families that that it wasn't going to be a surprise. It wasn't like, well, maybe I'll never get it. It would be there during that child's time at the high school. So I guess my question is if we're actually specifying certain rooms for chemistry and certain rooms for physics, I'm concerned because the high school, when it runs its classes, in a sense, doesn't always use, you can have the entire high school, which has happened, where there's no Chem AP for just, for the year. So you're not actually having several sections of it running during the year. How does that factor into making sure that we're doing full utilization of space?
So all the labs are going to be designed so that they can be used flexibly. So what would really designate a chemistry lab as such is the fact that it has a fume hood and additional utilities, but it can still be used as any other science classroom.
Thank you for clarifying it.
Ms. Savage?
I can ask my questions now or at the end. It really doesn't matter to me. You want me to do them now?
Okay.
These are just a couple of very minor ones about the facility. And I may have asked this before, and I apologize if it's a repeat, but it's something I get asked in the community a lot, which is with the addition of our CTE program into the main body of the school, how are we addressing issues of environmental fumes and whatnot from, carpentry shop, car shop, cosmetology shop. So that's a question I get fairly regularly.
One of the key things, and our mechanical engineers will be taking care of that, is for those spaces, you want to have them under negative pressure so that you're always taking air out of them and you're not letting air go out from them into the corridors. So there'll be a ventilation system appropriately designed for that. We've done that numerous times. The other question that's been asked relative to that same thing is the question of acoustical separation from some of those. And in the complete schematic design report that's been distributed, there's a section in there that our acoustical consultants prepared that give us very detailed information on how to make that separation so that we can have those spaces coexisting in the high school.
And then the second one has to do with the new circulation pattern, which seems like an excellent idea in terms of the roadway. And you had talked about a gate, and I just wondered if you'd put any thought into accommodations for cyclists. A number of our students ride their bikes to school, and it would be nice if those gates prevented automotive transportation but would allow cyclists, because as a cyclist, it's much safer to enter the high school from the main, the North Main entrance rather than from the Washington Avenue entrance. So if you can get on that roadway through the gate somehow on your bike, it would be much safer for our students.
Sure.
I think that just looking at it, we can put either a bypass sidewalk around the end of the gate or a gap in
Just
the gate
make the
that's
gap
wide
in the
enough.
gate, anything to let a cyclist through. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Lang? No? Okay, I do have one very small question, which is probably deep in the weeds, but we need an 8-lane track at some point. Are you factoring that into consideration determining where the concession stand goes?
We have not factored that in. In fact, when we did the work on the turf field, we determined that you can't get an 8-lane track all the way around that field.
Okay,
I'm going to
that's-
ask my question.
What's the determinant? Is it the slope on the opposite side of the field over there?
I have to go, yeah, that's part of it. Just all the way around that field, adding another 7 feet around the field would not give you enough room to put the track on the far side and still have any room for any sort of spectator bleachers on that side.
Got it. Okay, that's a bummer. All right, thank you. Ms. Lang.
I know that I hesitated to ask this because I know we just did the new roof on the existing thing. We were at NISBA and we were talking about roof gardens for CET for culinary. Is there anything for the new construction that, just kind of like the bike path or a way to get up there to do something like that in the future if somehow we got this amazing rooftop grant culinary garden thing? And just throwing that out there, but is that usable or?
We have not specifically talked about that, and doing it, we would probably do it on the, make provisions to do it on part of the new construction, because the structure could then be designed to do that. We are looking at, and some things like that we're looking at because of the city's stormwater issues, how we mitigate the stormwater management for the site, and part of that may be some green roofs or some blue roofs to help manage that.
All right, thank you. Let's get into the phasing.
Okay, so the first thing we wanted to talk about was really what was driving the decisions on the phasing. Pre-referendum, we had a preliminary phasing, and some of that's been slightly modified as we've gone along, but the number one goal in the phasing was to provide additional classroom space as early as we could. So that is why that classroom addition is phase one. And then the other priorities were to ensure student safety completely during construction, provide an operational building services to all occupied spaces during construction. What that really means is we got to make sure that the heat and the air conditioning and the electricity and the technology and the security and the PA system and all of those things can continue to operate throughout the construction periods. Obviously, we got to comply with all codes and regulations for occupancy of the building and have a minimum of any disruptions on the actual operations of the school, the teaching and the teachers and the students learning. So the overall phasing schedule from here is, well, the first phase was schematic design for phase one that we're finishing up tonight pretty much. Then we're going to go into design development from December through March, and construction documents April through July of 2017. And then it goes to the State Education Department, where it sits probably for a few months while they do their review. And then we will, planning is to bid and award phase one in February and March of 2018, so we can start construction as soon as ground thaws, and we can start construction in April of 2018 for occupancy of phase one in September of 2019. So the phase one includes, as we've talked, the 3-story classroom addition. We're also building a new mechanical room, basically part of will be phase two, but the first floor of it, which is in phase one between the auditorium and the gymnasium. And then that mechanical room will probably have a temporary roof on it so that it can be used before the rest of the construction's completed. So here's just kind of the diagrams of phase one, the classroom addition, and then the mechanical room that's going to be serving the heat and chilled water for air conditioning for the classroom addition, and we'll be cutting through the existing building with the piping to connect across from those two. Phase two schedule is continuing on with schematic design through next August to finish phase 2, 3, and 4. And then we'll follow through those schedules. You can see for design, development, construction documents, bidding this in early 2019, so construction can start on phase 2 as we're finishing construction on phase 1. And that addition is going to include the art and music addition and connections between the phase 1 and phase 2 parts of the building. And there'll be some temporary egress stairs as we demolish part of start modifying the existing building. And this really kind of shows you what the building will look like at the end of Phase 2. We'll have the whole classroom addition and the music and auditorium renovation in addition there, and that'll be what's currently planned for Phase 2. Subsequent phases for Phase 3, you can kind of see the schedules for Phase 3 and 4. We're working with Turner Construction on exactly the demarcation lines between Phase 3 and 4 so we can stay within all the funding and cost parameters that the overall bond was based on. Next steps as we go forward, Phase 1, we're going to be moving into design development. We'll be finishing the schematic design for the rest of the building. We'll refine the phasing in conjunction with working with the school district and Turner Construction. It's one of the things we wanted to highlight is that as we get closer and hone down our proposal for the phasing, we're going to have a dialogue with the school to make sure that whatever we're doing, they can continue to maintain those things that they need to do. Phase 1 will be relatively easy. When we get into the subsequent phases, there'll have to be a lot more dialogue with the school on that. And then we'll continue more detailed programmings on some of these spaces with the faculty at the school. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Looks like it was an excellent presentation.
And
Thank
I do
you
want to
very
say
much.
thank you. I just want to say that some of our questions were discussed and addressed in the facilities committee meeting last week.
And I want to say thank you for going back. I know that there had been some questions previously, and it seems like everybody is on the same page, so thank you.
Excuse me.
I just want to make sure I understand based on what I'm looking at. Before every phase, you have to do the SED thing? Before every phase, you've got to do the...
Correct. At
Before you can even put bids out, you got to do the SED thing.
Correct.
On every phase.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next up, discussion action referendum, West Hill Middle School, AKA 395 Elk Street. That's how it's on the agenda. Okay, Mr. Hogan.
Okay, about a year ago, when Brighter Choice Middle Schools closed for boys and girls, we inherited 200 students with very little notice, needing a place to put them. We started leasing the building. The building is actually well designed for special programs like an alternative education program. It's not as well designed for regular instruction because the majority of the classrooms are about 2/3 of the size of a normal classroom. But specialty programs that we run typically have smaller class sizes, so it would be of great benefit to the district. We're currently leasing it for $33,800 a month. We do have a proposal. We've been in discussions to acquire the building. We can acquire the building for $4 million. This building cost over $15 million 6 years ago, so we would be purchasing it for about 27 cents on the dollar. And also by purchasing it and getting approval from the voters in January, we would actually save about $169,000 in rent between February and June. That would decrease our $4 million acquisition cost to closer to $8.3 million. So in order to move forward in the process, there are a series of resolutions.
Mr. Hogan, you said 8.3 million. I think you may have misspoken.
3.8 million.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening, yes. Trying to keep it, all right, I'll try to keep everyone awake. So, in order to move the process forward, there are a series of resolutions. One is a seeker resolution, which essentially says there's no dramatic state environmental impact. And then there's also a resolution of necessity, just a resolution stating that the district does have a use and a need for the building. We do because of enrollment. And there is a resolution authorizing a proposition that would be put forth to the voters on January 10th. And then there is a board resolution just to execute this purchase. Ultimately, the voters in the district will decide on the purchase on January 10th. And we do want to emphasize that we will not raise anyone's taxes as a result of this purchase. In last year and in previous years, when we had savings on the budget during the year, we put money into a capital reserve that can, in the future, help offset general maintenance, roofs, blacktop, etc. But in this case, it can also be used to acquire the building and not have to raise taxes. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
Okay, Ms. Sadler.
So you spoke earlier about the size of the classrooms over there. I just want to check on one thing. So given the enrollment that we've talked about at the 50 North Lark building, which is also coming up for a vote in January, also at no tax increase coming from Capital Reserve, there are students currently now at 50 North Lark in the Alternative Learning Center, is that correct?
Correct.
So conceivably, well, first of all, we'd have to, once we take over 50 North Lark for the next middle school, we have to put our Alternative Learning Center students somewhere, isn't that correct?
Correct, we do
And
need
we
a place.
could, and so we could then move them, if we go ahead with the purchase of West Hill, we can move them into those smaller classrooms,
Yes.
Dr. Wilkins?
Yes. As a matter
Great.
of fact, the structure of West Hills is perfectly suited for our ALC program right now.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Dr. Brandon.
So that's a perfect segue to my concern. Now, I had just about made up my mind after a short discussion with Bill Hogan into the details of the Elk Street purchase. Can you hear me?
No, he can't.
But I'm concerned now. The first concern I have is the fact that we're going to be discussing tonight whether to put both of these referendums out on the same date. And I'm concerned about that, them coming out on the 10th. Now, I got to bring another point up. If 50 North Lark passes, which we're all hoping that it does, we definitely would be okay to say the point that Sue just brought up with Kim, with Dr. Wilkins, that that building, Elk would be ready to take those ACL students. But now, God forbid that 50 North Lark does not pass, then I need someone to tell me what and say Elk does pass. We've got a building that we've purchased, and what are we going to do with it? What's our plan? God forbid that the other one, if they both pass, you know, I can see where I would have no problem with voting yes for everything you got on the agenda tonight for this particular procedure or process. But if something happens that 50 North Lark doesn't make it, and then we've purchased this building, what are we going to tell the people that we're going to do with this building?
What's going to happen is that irregardless to 50 North Lark, which we're going to hope for the best and pray for the best, that it goes through, but for some reason, if it does not, we still have to open up a middle school. We have a bubble that is going through. We cannot have Hackett
So what
and
would you
Myers.
do?
The school is going to have to open, but it will not be equitable. It will not be the way we want it to
You
be.
mean Elk would have to open as the temporary middle
50,
school?
50 North Lark would have to be the middle school. The ALC would have to go over to the West Hills building. It's not the best situation, but we have no choice about 50 North Lark. We
So
own
you're
that building,
saying-
we have to have it as a middle school.
So you're saying we would open 50 North Lark the way it is?
Unfortunately, we have to structure it a little different. That has been my plan. You already know I have Plan B and C. So we would have to open it up, but we would be doing it a little differently because we would not have the equity in that building and the structure in the building that we really wanted to. So we have no choice. We have to have that middle school because otherwise the two schools are going to be overpopulated, cannot have that space of 815 kids in Hackett and 790 estimated kids at Myers. It just cannot happen.
So your other option, which was to leave things as they were, is off the table?
Yes, absolutely. It is off the table.
Keep the two fat middle schools. That option is off the table because at one time when we talked, you said that that would be your second option.
It would be a possible option.
possible
But with the influx of our ENL population right now coming in, I can't leave that option on there.
I can't. Thank you. You've answered my question, and much to my disdain, I'm not happy with this at all. I'm sorry.
Any further questions? Ms. Roach, Ms. Smith, you guys are good? Ms. Lang, Ms. Savage?
I got one more thing to say, if I'm allowed. I just cannot see putting those children in a school that's not up to standard. I am so sorry. There is no way in the world. I don't know what else. And usually when I get like this, I like to have something to say. Why don't you do such and such? And right now, to be honest with you, I don't have a thing to say to you about what you should do next. But I just cannot see opening up 50 North Lark when we know it's substandard. To put 350 or 400 kids in that school and we know it's substandard. It is unfortunate that we are in this kind of a predicament because there's a lot of ifs here. We don't know if the referendums are going to go up or down, and we've got about 400 kids that are at risk here with where we're going to put them. Unfortunately, this board's got to deal with a mistake that was made by a prior board and a prior superintendent. And this is why you get the questions that you get. Why did we ever close Livingston, which handled 900 to 1,000 children? I hate to go back there and bring it up, but I just have to, because this is almost an impossible situation we are in right now. And I don't feel comfortable voting yes, and if this thing goes down, we got to put those kids in that substandard building. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. And I have tossed this thing over since the last board meeting. And with what you just told me now, can't do it. I'm sorry. Somebody, if you can convince me around this table where it's going to be better than what the superintendent just said, there's a possibility I'll change my mind, but I'm only one vote. If 4 of you decide you want to go with it, go ahead, but I'm not going to have that blood on my hands. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Savage.
I would never try and convince Dr. Brandon to go against her heart and mind. That would be a foolhardy errand on my part. But I would just like to clarify with Dr. Wilkins that the issue about 50 North Lark and what happens to the students if that were not to pass is an issue about whether 50 North Lark passes or not. This vote today, which is to purchase West Hill, doesn't actually change your Plan B, Plan C question. This would actually give us more flexibility because we'd have another building in our quiver, another arrow in the quiver. It gives us more flexibility to do something else. And I know that you've thought through some of these possibilities, but I also think that if this unlikely scenario should happen where we would pass the Elk and not pass 50 North Lark, that we would have to deal with that situation on the ground at that time and then make a fundamental decision about how to proceed. That is, in my opinion, a fairly unlikely scenario. I think more likely both up or both down. But I do think it's great to think it through, but I just don't think we should, in our heads, be tying this bad scenario of what happens if 50 North Lark goes down to whether or not we need to buy this building. Because we need to own this building because we have a growing enrollment. We have a growing need for special programming such as the ALC, which we know we need to grow to do a better job educating our ALC students, such as potentially a newcomer school or some kind of programming for our ENL folks. And as Mr. Hogan has so eloquently presented, we are getting a building that we could not build for this amount of money. We are spending essentially 27 cents on the dollar to purchase this building, so it adds to our facility, our facilities at a very reasonable cost, and gives us more flexibility to deal with the situation if in fact 50 North Lark does go down. So it's two different things in my mind.
I have another question. In case of the bad scenario, is there anything you could do with Elk Street? It's in better shape for students right now than 50 North Lark?
You know, I can't say that it's not really, in a sense, the classes are small, as Bill has actually explained about the size of the classes. The building structure might look better because it's a newer building, but 50 North Lark is a very nice building. We just wanted to get it up to speed with equitable resources in there, but if we had to stay in there for a year, it's not what we want it to be right now, but doesn't mean we don't go back out. I hate to do the what ifs and the glass being half full, but I know we have to have plans for that. But at this point, if we have to go in there.
I guess what I'm saying is there, can you use Elk to relieve some of that overcrowdedness?
Yes, absolutely.
Would you be able to use Elk to
Yes.
to relieve some of that overcrowdedness?
Yes, we could, absolutely.
Because it's not totally perfect, but it's in better standard for what you need than Lark is, right?
Yes, we could definitely use 50. We can use
Of course,
the
you
Elk
wouldn't
Street
have
address.
a pool, and
West
you
Hill.
wouldn't have, you'd have a gymnasium, but no pool.
Yep, we'll figure it out as we go through, but we could. I mean, answering the question for Dr. Brennan, we definitely
To
could.
relieve some of
Yes.
some of this overcrowdedness that you're gonna have at the two middle schools if 50 North Lark goes down.
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
So there would definitely be a need or a purpose, as Ann has gone through.
Yes.
That we could work it
Absolutely.
with Elk Street.
Yes. You know how I am. I got plans.
Ms. Sadler.
So I also just wanted to clarify something. I share and respect the concerns about equitable, the importance of equity so that each of our middle school students, no matter which building they're in, has the same experience. That's our ultimate goal. But I also want to clarify something because this is a public board meeting, and that is that that it's not a substandard building. The building is safe, it's to code, the roof, the ceilings, the walls. What it isn't, for example, as Dr. Brandon eloquently said, is there's not a pool there. Not meaning 50 North Lark, but at the Elk, at West Hill. But in terms of 50 North Lark needing that extra work, it's not because the building itself isn't good. Now, we wanted to do repairs on the pool in 50 North Lark. We wanted to make sure that in terms of science classrooms, they had everything like the other middle schools, and that is a given. That's a given, but I wanted to just clarify that if one were to walk into 50 North Lark now, because we're doing tours, even though that's not what's on the calendar for tonight's agenda, you would not see a building in disrepair. But one of the reasons that we are out there in the community right now, one of the reasons why people are out doing tours, well, we are going to do a huge PR campaign and a community involvement between now and January 10th, is so that our community understands that we owe to each of our students the same equitable buildings and programs that they have no matter what school they go to. And so I definitely share the concerns Dr. Brennan says. We always do. Whenever we have a vote, the concern is what if? But we get our people behind it, and we have high school plans that we're looking at now. We did have a hiccup, and we corrected it, and we're back on track. And I don't think it's Pollyanna to believe that this district and its community will get behind a no tax increase, no tax impact set of buildings that need to come online for us to house our growing community, to house students that are no longer thankfully leaving in middle school but staying on, and to house them in a way so that everybody has the experience they really do need. And so I appreciate the questions and having the other plans in place and being able, like Ann said, to be flexible. If the worst happens, we will figure it out, and we will probably go back for another vote. There are a lot of things that we will have with our quivers, as someone used, in our box to be able to move forward. Right, the archery metaphor is killing me. But we will be able to go forward and figure out what to do.
Do you want to?
And of course, the other thing we need to know is that, well, we know, putting these both out together, that's $4 million to pay for Elk Street and 6 point however mil to do the renovations. So that's about at least 10 mil that we're going to be asking, all tax, no tax. No tax, I understand that, but this is what the voters are going to have to look at the same time. Yes.
And I just wanted to make one point to you, because I know we've talked about this, but this is now in a public meeting, is publicly we've been chastised as a district, whether I agree or not, but our public speaks and we listen, about piecemeal kinds of movement, meaning that, okay, so you're doing this building now, but didn't you realize you needed another building? So one of the reasons that I actually think supports putting them both out on January 10th is we know we have these two buildings. We know they will meet the needs of our students, and we know what it will take without any tax increase to do it. And if to split them up in that way, we would be rightly chastised. People would be right to say, really, you split it up? You gave us one when you knew you had another? So I think that we have a very smart electorate. They always do the right thing, even if it takes them 2 votes to do it. The last time on the high school, but that was a much bigger one with a tax levy involved. And we did not do the right work that we should have going forward on how we talk to a community. And we learned our lesson for our second vote, and we know how to explain it now. And we also know to say to them, hey, we're not going to piecemeal it. We're going to give you both. And we are one of 7 districts doing a capital project vote that is not November and that is not going in May. And this is important. It looks like there is growth everywhere in this in the capital region, and I'm proud that we're one of those districts doing it.
Anybody else? Okay. I would like to agree with what Sue just said, Ms. Adler, sorry. The plan for 50 North Lark is already approved. It's water under the bridge. We have to make today's decision based on looking forward, not so much looking back. The 50 North Lark renovation gives us an opportunity moving forward to create an equitable middle school. If that doesn't come to fruition, having West Hill Middle School, 395 Elk, as an alternative gives us more opportunity as well. It gives us more flexibility. And as well as if we didn't have that building, it would actually be disastrous. Yes. So today's vote really revolves around 395 Elk. And as Dr. Wilkins has expressed, she has a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, depending upon which referendums pass, which referendums don't. And right now, the 2 referendums, the plan that supports these 2 referendums is a good plan, an equitable plan, and a plan I plan on supporting. And it also makes for a good narrative around what we're trying to do with middle school and what we're trying to do on that side of town. And I think that's helpful. As Ms. Adler said, it's not piecemeal. It's a full execution of a full plan. And I would like to also mention that this is a discussion item that we would like to vote on tonight, just based on the need for the 45-day notification. So
It's already out as an action.
It is on as an action. But, I mean, you know, usually we go discussion and then come back. So I just want to highlight that before we actually ask for a motion. So that's my 2 cents. Is there any other, Ms. Smith?
Sure. I just want to add to that sort of in recent days, having had a couple of conversations with a number of teachers, I'm also excited from the programmatic side that there are things that you can't do in these fat schools. You know, I mean, and equity is still a concern, I get that, but there's things that you cannot do well or sufficiently or effectively enough if you don't have the space to do it. And so having been involved in some conversations with teachers and administrators about this, I'm excited about what the possibility holds for greater student engagement, parental engagement, community engagement, and ultimately the success of our students with these facilities. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Lang, are you?
I just want to say that I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think that this has a comprehensive plan, and I want to say that, you know, I am excited about where we're going in the middle school juncture with the large enrollment numbers of children that are coming into our district or are choosing our Albany schools, and I'm very proud of that, and that means expansion, and I think we're doing the best that we can do.
Ms. Roach.
I'd just like to echo that I'm excited with the plans for 50 North Lark and with the West Hill building. I think we're moving in the right direction, quite literally, in the sense that we're geographically putting our schools where many of our students are. That simply makes sense, especially when you're talking about students whose families don't have as many transportation options. This is going to be a really good way to get our schools and our middle school children more equitable opportunities. And the West Hill building is really fantastic for some of the smaller learning situations like alternative education or a newcomer school. So I think that this building will be really a real asset to the district, and it's a bargain because we didn't build it ourselves. So.
Dr. Brandon, are you good? Okay. So I would like to say we just have to aim high and be bold. We cannot recoil in fear and have that guide our decision making. We have to reach for opportunities and try to make the most of them. So with that said, how would we like to approach these resolutions?
I believe
one by
Mr. Honeywell required us to vote them one by one last time.
Okay. All right,
We
there
learn
you go.
quick around here.
Okay. First one is SECRA. And let me just, Ms. Tibbetts, these resolutions are available to the public? Okay, great. All right. Could I get a motion to approve SECRA for 395 Elm Street property purchase? Ms. Smith, and a second by Ms. Roach. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that looks like it's all except for Dr. Brandon. Opposed? Abstaining? That would be Dr. Brandon. Okay, thank you. Short environmental assessment. Oh, we don't need to approve that. Okay, got it. Sorry. Necessity resolution. Could I get a motion to approve this? Ms. Sadler and a second by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Okay, again, that is all except for Dr. Brandon. And opposed? Abstention? Dr. Brandon abstains. Ms. Tibbetts, are you? Okay. The proposition resolution, could I get a motion to approve? Ms. Smith, and a second by Ms. Savage. All those in favor? Okay, that would be Smith, Roach, Lang, Savage, Adler, and Bruce. Opposed, abstaining would be Dr. Brandon. Okay, thank you. Resolution to execute 395 Elk Street. This is actually a short resolution. Be it resolved that the City School District of Albany Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent and a determination that it is in the best interest of the City School District of Albany to own rather than lease the property located at 395 Elk Street, Albany, New York 12207, otherwise known as West Hill Middle School, which consists of approximately 1.6 acre parcel of land, a 3-story, 54,000 plus square feet building erected on said land, and any equipment and machinery located on the land. The West Hill property hereby approves the execution of a contract for purchase and sale of the West Hill property for a purchase price not to exceed $4 million plus usual and customary closing costs, which is subject to voter approval. Be it further resolved, subject to the review and preparation of documents by school council, the President of the Board of Education hereby authorizes to execute all documents necessary to enter into a contract for purchase and sale of West Hill property in accordance with the terms of the resolution. And I will make a motion to approve that resolution. Second by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Again, that would be Smith, Roach, Lang, Adler, Savage, and Bruce. Opposed and abstaining, Dr. Brandon. Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Wilkins, and let's hope for the best. Discussion action, budget. Mr. Hogan.
Okay, as you're aware, the superintendent and the cabinet have several academic plans in place. As we enter the 2017-18 budget cycle, it's important to align the financial resources with the academic goals and priorities. The goals and priorities are derived in the academic plans that the superintendent cabinet have either put in place or, in the case of community schools, are developing. The three major overarching plans that have district-wide impact that we would like to focus on in 2017-18 are the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan, the Enhanced Academic Plan that we put forth last year as the first year, and a new Community Schools Initiative. What I'm going to give you is a very broad overview at the 10,000-foot level. We have a wealth of academic expertise with our superintendent and my fellow cabinet members behind me who much more in depth in these areas than I am. This is just a very high level overview. So with that, let's begin. The District Comprehensive Improvement Plan, or the DCEP, is based on 5 tenets: school leadership practice, curriculum development, teacher practice and delivery, student social and emotional health, family and community engagement. And this plan actually has an emphasis on the priority schools, which are listed, are footnoted on the bottom. And the current financial resource allocation for this plan is $6.6 million. We'll be looking at continuing that next year. The second plan we want to focus on is the Enhanced Academic Plan that was new last year. This is comprised of 5 different themes: a focus on P2 literacy, social and emotional needs, college and career readiness, safety and security, and administrative support for instructional leadership. Those themes actually emerged, we talked about this last year as we had a lot of discussions, and the various administrators throughout the district and principals provided input on the budget work papers. We worked to desegregate that and identify common themes. It is a multi-year phase-in, and as I said, this year is the first year. It also emphasizes on priority schools, but there are other schools that are positively impacted as well. And currently, we're allocating about $2.1 million toward these priorities. And then the third academic plan that we want to focus on next year, you're going to be seeing information on this again shortly, but we would next year want to continue the implementation of the community schools. It's currently being finalized. The focus will be on organizing school and community resources around student success. You're going to see after-school components, school-based and school-linked services for students and families, and partnerships with local community organizations and stakeholders. This plan will actually focus, as we roll it out, exclusively on the priority schools, again footnoted on the bottom of the screen. At the high school level, we would focus at the ALC the first year, and the planned level of resource allocation that we're starting with this year is $1.6 million. And this is a little different than a lot of the things we do. The source of funding that was passed that we're currently using was a one-year approval by the legislature. We're going to be kind of on pins and needles until we see, hopefully this will be brought forward in the governor's initial budget proposal in January. If so, that would really help us tremendously in planning. If it's not there, it kind of turns into an uphill climb where you're waiting until the last day of March or first day of April when they pass the final budget for us to make a lot of decisions really quickly. So we will continue as we do. We've already actually given the administrators budget work papers and provided a training session. This was all launched on November 3rd. The budget calendar you saw at the last meeting, following this presentation, that's an action item to adopt the budget calendar. We meet with administrators, usually beginning in December or January and into February, to solicit their ideas and feedback. We take all that feedback to Cabinet, prioritizes plans, and like last year, puts together a comprehensive district-wide set of priorities and plans for us to look at. The board is regularly updated throughout the process, as you know. There's 14 public budget sessions prior to the board adopting the budget in April, and following the adoption, there's typically 8 to 10 public meetings at neighborhood associations, PTAs, to explain essentially what people are voting on. So the entire process will follow the budget calendar. And with that, I'm ready for any discussion.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Anybody want to start? Sure, Ms. Sadler.
My understanding, doesn't mean to short circuit questions. The only reason I don't have any questions is I thought basically we're going to be voting on the calendar now, and some point down the road, usually we get there by January or so, we start actually going through program questions and things like that in terms of getting into the conversations with the program people. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Ms. Savage, I'm sorry.
I just have one small comment on the calendar. Mr. Hogan's aware of this, and I sent it to board colleagues late in the day today, so I'm not sure how many people saw this, that we are, as you know, going to have an update on the superintendent's search process shortly, and we're going to need to wedge yet one more meeting into January. So I just want us to be cognizant of the way those two things might fit together, and we're going to adopt this calendar, which is going to commit us to public workshops on January 11th and 18th from 5:30 to 7 for the budget, And obviously, that first week in January is going to be extremely busy for school-loving folk because they're going to be busy voting on Tuesday, January the 10th as well. So I just want us to keep in our heads how that might work, and that we might, I don't know if we can do this when we adopt this calendar, adopt it with a little bit of give on those two, so that if we feel that we need to adjust them in order to accommodate, because other things happen in the district at that time too, such as the open houses for the magnets are in that same time frame, so there's a lot going on, and I'm just anxious about committing to this before we have the other big blocks all in. So that's my comment.
Yeah, we certainly can move those workshop dates as long as, obviously, we'd want it by early December, the latest, just so that everybody is aware that we moved them and we promote it properly. These two workshops you're talking about on January are pretty generic. It does give information about our district, but it's really in the context of, here's a public school budget, here's the major revenue streams, here's the expenses, here's some mandates, and the makeup of our budget with percentages, et cetera. But it's really to help people get some idea of what is a school budget, what are the components, what is a mandate, how does that impact us? And we try to not, after this, and once the governor's state aid proposal is sent out, then we really start getting, we're totally specific on our district.
Yeah, I have attended them and found them very informative when I was first learning about the school district finance. It's just a question of our most active family members and community members are going to want to be at both. And that's going to be a real hardship on family life.
Right. So also along those same lines, we have to adopt a calendar as part of a state ed requirement. But there isn't a necessary exactness to it. Is that? Because I know last year we moved one of the significant budget dates at the very
Right. I think as long as you give sufficient public notice.
Okay.
I think you're okay.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion on the calendar?
Well, just one thing on Ms. Adler's comment in terms of, last year we've never done that before. There was something like 14 program presentations. That was a monster. And we've done a lot. We've done some even recently. So I guess it would just be helpful in the next couple of weeks from board members to get, if there's specific programs that you would like reviewed. We'll be meeting with all of our people, and a lot of in terms of their recommendations and our review, we'll look at. It won't be that much different from the last time if they did it a year ago, unless it's like E&L. Then we're going to need up to the minute, data.
To allay your concerns, I was not thinking that we were recreating what happened last year.
Well, thank God.
Last year was a different year, and we had not actually done as a board the program work. So as a result, we were doing like major front loading. We all wound up being on the same page at the same time in time for this past budget and said, we really do need to finally start looking at program. And we've thankfully, with the district staff and with this board, we get ongoing program reviews for people. I was going to say Freda Peretz could say, because she's here all the time. We do this regularly. We get program reviews. They come up periodically. We have a schedule that we're going to hopefully, get hammered in a little more. But that's very helpful. So I didn't want to scare you into thinking, with all the work you do, seriously, that all of a sudden we were going to be, we have new program things we want. Instead, what I meant was, to the extent that any ongoing programs we may have questions, or I might have questions about, I figured those questions would be better asked when we moved into the phase, not tonight, but I wanted to make sure this was just the calendar and your little intro, and that come the 2017, that would be when we might start asking them either through emails or in a meeting. So.
That sounds great.
Any further discussion? Okay, could I get a motion to approve the 2017-18 budget development calendar for the City School District of Albany? Motion by Ms. Savage and second by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next up, discussion, superintendent search update. Ms. Savage.
I am just going to wait for the slides to catch up, and I need a clicker, otherwise I need to say next slide all the time, which is really annoying. Okay, I think I know how to use the tool, so we'll see how this goes. As most people who either come to or listen to board meetings know, Dr. Wilkins is serving ably as our interim superintendent and has been since January of this year. Her contract runs through August of this year. As we have discussed in a number of prior meetings, the board has elected to do a national search with the intent to have a permanent superintendent named hopefully by the end of this school year. So my role tonight is, at the request of my board colleagues, to give an update about the search process, how it's going to work, and the timeline thereof. So I am going to start, and look, I used the clicker successfully for the first time, by giving you a high-level view of the timeline. So as you can see, I conveniently located today on your timeline. What we have accomplished to date is selected a consultant who's assisting us with this work. That was done, and that person was hired on November the 3rd. We are now in the midst of planning for the work of hiring a permanent superintendent. That work is divided into 4 phases, and I'm going to go through each of these phases in more detail. I'm just highlighting them for you on the schedule. The first, and I would say probably the most critical piece in terms of our success as a community, is the community input phase, which will be happening in December of 2016 and January of 2017. At the same time, beginning also in December, but running through March, we will be doing the recruitment of potential superintendents. That is primarily done by our consultants, which I will talk more about who they are and what their role is. Then coming along from April to June, we will be selecting a permanent superintendent, and that has several phases, which I will go through. And then by the end of this school year, June, we will be in the transition phase of transitioning to the permanent superintendent. So now I'm going to go through each phase in a little bit more detail. So first, the search consultant. Those of you who attend board meetings know that we contracted with the group called Western New York Educational Service Council. We did that after a review of proposals and interviews, and they've been on board since the beginning of November. We hired them in particular for the reasons that are listed here. They have had literally hundreds of successful superintendent searches in New York State, including some cities that have familiar names like Rochester, Rome, Oswego, Oneonta, Tonawanda, and some in New York City. We were impressed by their strong commitment to community involvement, which we think is so critical. We were also convinced by their recognized expertise, both by their references that we checked and by our own knowledge of people in the field, in their ability to recruit strong candidates, and the strong network that they have because of their work in the education area in order to do that recruitment. What their role is very important for everyone to understand. They are essentially a support team to the board for the search. They will administer the search processes at the direction of the board. They will recruit candidates individually and by mechanisms of advertising, and they will collect and consolidate information for the board. They have exactly 0 decision-making authority. All of the decision-making authority rests with the board, and that's a very important aspect of what a search consultant does. So that brings us to the first phase of the work, which is community input. This is how we are going to gather a sense of what people in the community beyond the 7 of us believe is critical for our permanent superintendent to have. The work will be conducted by Western New York Educational Service Council, and they will give a complete detailed report of all of the comments that are made to the board. And there's going to be 4 elements of that essentially, which are focus groups, which will be very carefully planned focus groups in a variety of areas. We will also have, in addition to the focus groups, and I'll talk a little bit more about what those areas are in a minute, a public roundtable for anyone who wants to participate to come and participate in a facilitated discussion about the key aspects of a superintendent. We will also do an online and paper survey for those who prefer to participate that way. And there will also be some individual outreach by Western New York to individual community members to ensure that we have captured a sense of what the most important aspects are. All of the feedback that comes from those 4 aspects will be worked into a community profile, and that community profile will then become the basis both for the recruitment of potential permanent superintendent candidates and for the selection of the permanent superintendent. Here are some of the stakeholders that would be invited specifically to focus groups and also to that roundtable. This, I hope, represents almost everyone, or perhaps everyone, who touches the City School District of Albany. Clearly, our students are front and center, as are our families, our not-for-profits, who are very important partners, as well as our staff, both non-union staff and staff represented by bargaining units. Our business community serves a critical role in being a partner with us, as do our PTOs and PTAs. And we hope this time to do a great job in integrating with our clergy throughout the community, making sure that they see it, that we see them as full partners and that they see us as full partners. And also, of course, local government always has an influence on the outcome of all things in Albany. That's the community process part. And I don't want to go by it too fast because it's so critical. This is the heart and soul of what's happening. Everything comes into this community profile, which is then used for recruitment and selection. So back to recruitment, here are the kinds of things we're going to do for recruiting candidates. There are 4 main categories. I'm going to go through each one in detail. First of all, we're going to have a brochure. This is very typical of superintendent searches, which is strange to those of us who've been hired in other fields. You don't normally get a brochure for, like, come work for us, but that's how it's done in superintendent searches. And here's a couple of samples, Albany's last one, and one for Clarkstown and one for Rochester. We will be doing a brochure, and that brochure will be the synthesis of all that information we learned through the community input process. We will be doing a significant amount of paid advertising with entities such as the School Superintendents Association, Education Week, which are national organizations, as well as New York State-based organizations like the Council of School Superintendents and the School Boards Association. In addition, Western New York will be doing what we call organizational outreach. They will be reaching out to organizations, working with their leadership to identify potential candidates who might be well suited to Albany. You'll see a number of familiar organizations listed here, like our New York State BOCES organizations, the Harvard School of Education, which is well known for their superintendent training program, college and university placement offices, as well as some very focused and specific areas like the National Alliance of Black School Educators, like the New York State Superintendents Association, like the Association of Latino Administrators, et cetera. We are honoring the diversity that is our community and ensuring that we are doing everything we can to be an equal opportunity employer for our superintendent. The last aspect of recruitment is personal outreach. This is a place where Western New York is going to provide an essential element. They will be directly reaching out to and recruiting individual human beings that they think have a good fit for Albany based on what we've told them in a community process. That means personal phone calls. They have a deep network, both in New York State and nationally. They have long-standing relationships. They've been on the boards. For example, the 2 gentlemen who will be our primary contacts there have been on the boards of the National Superintendents Association and the New York State School Boards Association, which gives them excellent access to potential candidates. The next phase is selection. So that everything we've done to this point gets us a pool of candidates. And that pool will be defined by March 31st. That will be the application deadline. All candidates will be identified by March 31st. From March 31st to June, we have to winnow that group of people down. We're going to do that in 2 phases. There's going to be a semifinalist stage. We expect about 6 to 8 semifinalists. Those folks will all undergo thorough background checks, all at the hands of Western New York. Then we will also have a finalist section. So after we have interviewed the semifinalists, we will select 2 or 3 finalists to be interviewed and then select a permanent superintendent. The next phase, once the permanent superintendent is in hand, we hope, is to transition to that person. That means negotiating a contract with them, appointing them, and publicly announcing to both our own district and to their prior district that they will be moving here, which is a very difficult point of transition for the community which they are leaving, because no one likes to watch their superintendent leave. And the stakeholder outreach will be a critical element of getting our permanent superintendent committed and integrated into the district. Superintendents generally work to develop an entrance plan for their new district, identifying what their intentions are around what their work will be. That brings me to this slide, which has a lot of words on it. I tried to put fewer words because it's really a bit too small, but it's so important that this be well understood that I felt that it was worth it to have smaller font to have more words. We are going to be conducting a confidential search. What in the world does that mean? A confidential search is a search in which the stakeholder input shapes the criteria that is used to recruit and select candidates. The selection of semifinalists, finalists, and the final candidate is done by the Board of Education. At the very end, a public announcement is made to both districts after the contract with the new district is signed. And I want to highlight that this is different than what we did last time. It's going to feel different, because last time we did an open search in which the stakeholder community not only participated in the community involvement, but they participated directly in the screening and interviewing of candidates. The board was still responsible for making the final decision, but stakeholders were involved directly in interviewing and screening, and that's going to be different this time. This time, the Board of Education will do the interviews and will do the screening and selecting. And so the question, of course, is why? Why are we making it different this time? There's a number of very good reasons, and we thought long and hard about this, but there is a highly competitive environment for successful urban superintendents. Spend 2 minutes on Google and you will find it is extremely difficult to find good superintendents in an urban setting. For those good superintendents, confidentiality is critical to them being willing to even participate in the process. Those strong candidates are sitting in their districts, succeeding and being perfectly happy doing so. And they're not going to risk that success with their current board and their current district if they don't have a fairly good confidence that they're going to get this other job. So what they are finding, searches and searchers, consultants and districts are finding that if they do an open search, that's the old kind, the one kind we did last time, they get very few applicants. And the ones that they get are not the strongest. Districts who've done both, they do an open search, they can't hire someone, then they do a closed search, or confidential search, and then, oh look, now there's applicants. So we're basing our decision on our desire to have the best possible superintendents for our district. So for those reasons, we are going to do a confidential search, and we think that's in the best interests of Albany, even though it's quite different than what we did last time. So that brings us back to our timeline. I wanted to show this slide again so that you could get a sense, now that you understand a little bit more about what those phases are and why they're so important, of how they're going to play out. We're going to spend December and January really focusing on getting input from our community. We're going to spend up through March collecting our pool of superintendents. We're going to spend April and through June selecting a permanent superintendent, and at that end of June, or at that point in June, we will make a public announcement of who the permanent superintendent will be. And at that time, we will enter into transition. The question for us all is, for everyone else in the room and hopefully listening and reading this after the fact, is how can you be participating in this process? There will be an online survey. That's the easiest lift because you can do it from home at your convenience. There will also be a paper version. We hope as many people will do that as possible, and we're looking for our communications department to help us get that out. We will be having the roundtable discussion, as you just heard me talk about with Mr. Hogan. The date on that is still to be determined. We're trying to find a date that will be the most accessible to the most people. And we will be using, obviously, our normal way of communicating, albanyschools.org, the SNN. Please, everyone who's listening or reading this, double check your SNN. If you want to be in on this, you need to check that district news category, Facebook and Twitter. And of course, the old attend and listen to board meetings. And finally, very important, Western New York This is our primary contact there, Bob Chrisman. That's his email address. That's his office phone number. Any member of the community who has a suggestion to make about the search or who has a comment or critique of the search should absolutely always reach out to board members who are here, but Bob Chrisman is going to be our central point for information for all things search related. And that is the end of my presentation. And I don't know if other board members want to make a comment or add anything at this point, but that is what we had planned to say.
Sadler.
Ms. Savage, I just wanted to thank you very much for taking leadership in this, to take on that role. It's a lot of work, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate all the work you've done behind the scenes and in putting together the presentation for this evening. It's a really, you're doing such a good job with it, and I know that it is very time-consuming, so it's much appreciated.
Dr. Brandon.
Ditto to everything that Sue has said, and I think I sent you an email today with a thumbs up. I'm just absolutely thrilled that you took this bull by the horn, and you've done an excellent job, and the presentation was fantastic, so thorough. I don't think you didn't leave anything for anybody to wonder about. It was very plain and very well put. And we're in the midst of being transparent to make sure that the community knows what we're doing. And I just think you did an excellent job, and I want to thank you so much for all the work you've done with this particular issue.
I would like to echo those sentiments, and probably nobody appreciates it as much as I do. Any other comments on the superintendent search? Okay, next up, policy discussion. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I would have gotten one.
Okay, who? Policy discussion. Ms. Savage, are you taking this also?
Yeah, that's still me.
Okay.
But it's not nearly as long as the last one. There are two policies before us tonight. I'll mention them both, and then we can review them one at a time. The first one is actually rescinding a policy. For those of you who follow along closely with the policy manual, we have approximately 165 policies. One less is actually a good thing. The reason we will have one less is that policy number 5300.56, the random search policy, after review with our legal counsel, we determined that all of the material in that policy is just a restatement of the law, and it's already included in our code of conduct. So it's both there in the law and it's there in this more informal way for our community to understand what's in the law. So having this policy is redundant. Redundant policies don't make sense because then we have to maintain them. That's the simpler one. So we would be voting next time to rescind that. We're having discussion this time. If we choose to, we would vote next time to rescind that. The other policy is the Narcan policy, 8121.1. This is a new topic about which I don't think most of us have thought very much, because there's a new program by the New York State Department of Health called the Opioid Overdose Prevention Program. And that is a program that allows people to access Narcan, which is a intranasal drug, like a nasal spray, which prevents overdoses and keeps people alive who otherwise would not be alive. And so this is a policy that describes in what way we will assist the New York State Department of Health in this opioid overdose prevention program, both with our school nurses, who are obviously trained medical professionals, but also through a voluntary, note I'm saying completely voluntary, program that allows our staff to take the training so that they could do this administration themselves. There is a red line document showing what that red line is not between a currently adopted policy and a new one, as it usually is, but instead it's between the New York State School Boards Association model policy and what we chose to do. And it is a little bit different because we wanted to provide a way for our nurses to participate in this program, and nurses have to do things only at the order of a doctor. They have to have a doctor's order in order to apply medication to someone. So we had to do some special workarounds to accommodate the needs of the medical profession, because the program is really designed for volunteers. So with that, I will turn it over for any discussion, if there is any, on either of those policies.
Any discussion?
No discussion, but just I'm really fascinated and happy about the Narcan policy because this is something that could be life-saving. So I'm glad that we're adopting this.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Savage. Next up, the lottery. Ms. Wilson Turner. Is someone else joining you?
Dr. Lane from Delaware Community School and Melissa Hasty, our early childhood director, will be joining me.
Okay, thank you.
Presentation. Thank you. Okay.
Dr. Lane, good evening.
Yeah, you can come up. That's all right. You're fine. You're just here for the stuff.
Ms. Hasty, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How's the new job?
It's great, thank you.
Good. Can I advance with this? Okay, this was just going to be an update on some of the things that we discussed in May at our board presentation that needed to happen between now and then in order to change the transparency of the lottery process as much as humanly possible so that we can inform parents and to do some things a little bit differently with our waiting list and our waiting pools. However, in the time between May and now, we've had some discussion around how we enroll the dual language program, which we're also going to talk about this evening. And so I have Dr. Lane here to assist with questions around that conversation piece. And I have Melissa Hasty here because she lives and breathes lottery alongside with me for the pre-K component. So we've spent our time since May, as promised, finalizing protocols, because I think we said we found that they hadn't been updated since 2005, which was timely as we hired a new magnet administrative assistant to provide support. So we spent some time this summer codifying all of our lottery protocols so that everybody around the table doing the work could have some understanding of them. One of the big things that we want to do next is to move kindergarten registration up significantly, possibly as early as January, prior to the lottery for both pre-K and magnet. And with the budget proposal for additional support and central registration, we think this would be possible. We also want to work on adding our 3-year-old lottery into the main lottery so that we're running one lottery one main lottery for the elementary or pre-K through 6 programming. That's our goal. We're going to get there. We've developed a preliminary communication plan, Melissa and I, about how we want to get information, particularly about pre-K, out into the community in a couple of different venues. We're going to use some existing events that are occurring in school buildings to kind of set up tabling to support people in filling out their applications. And we're going to use the theme nights at the magnet schools in the dual language program also to get out in front of the lottery application process for those programs. So we have some tentative dates that we'll cross-reference with the communication office to make sure that we make the best use of that time. So what we are most excited about is the new application booklet, where we placed all this information. Lisa Angerami has been essential in formatting our very rough notes into something that's going to look nice and beautiful. Some board members have contributed some important feedback as parents who have gone through this process. So we hope to have a very informative and helpful application booklet for both our pre-K lottery, or excuse me, our 4-year-old lottery, and our magnet school lottery, so that parents have the information they need to make the decision. One of the big things that we decided to add, not to the application booklet upon feedback from Lisa, but actually to our district website, is current information as we go into the lottery process about the number of available seats in each program and the statistics around how often those programs are selected for sibling preference, neighborhood preference, and overall, so that people have an understanding of their chances of getting into that school without those preferences. We also are adding a frequently asked question document. Over just the course of 1 year, there were many questions that were asked over and over again that showed some clear confusion for parents. And through the FAQ, we hope to be able to tackle some of those questions right up front. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at that, or you know some folks who've asked a question about lottery and you want to shoot those our way, please do so that we can add those to the document. Sibling linking has been our ongoing discussion, and we discussed in May that we would not link our students in the lottery. And for those who may not know what sibling linking is versus sibling preference, sibling linking is if Melissa and I were twins, because we could be, right? We would move through that lottery process together, and if Melissa got in, I got in. However, when we unlink them, parents have the opportunity to have one of their children get in and decide to keep those children in, but would realize that they would have children in 2 different schools. The distinction in sibling linking is it would also shut parents out if Melissa and I were both linked and I didn't get in, so Melissa didn't get in. However, it has proven to be a challenge for our families, particularly of multiples, who do not want to separate their 4-year-olds as they go through this process. It was asked that we take a look at with our lottery consultant as to how many families actually would be impacted by a choice to link or not link. And he identified 78 students who would have been linked in the lottery had we linked them going through. And so the challenge that we grapple with is our lottery data entry is done by one person, our magnet or lottery admin assistant. She processes upwards of, I think I put in the report 2,000, that's total for the year, but upwards of 750 applications between, I'm sure it feels like that, when the magnet deadline closes and when the pre-K deadline closes. And so there's room for error, and that's really my greatest fear in giving people the option of being able to click or unclick that, but it does present a challenge for our families to not be linked. So the piece that we really wanted to bring to the board as a presentation is around the dual language program and enrollment. So currently that process is, we only use a lottery for our pre-kindergarten entry into the dual language program. After the pre-kindergarten year, there is a wait list. And I think as many of you know, I think some of you emailed me this year to find out how many people slept outside to get into kindergarten seats at the dual language program, because that is traditional practice that people will wait outside the night before or very, very early that morning of the start of kindergarten registration to get a seat in the kindergarten program. Then from that point on, a waiting list is maintained in the central registration office, and they'll fill those seats as we go along. We strongly recommend at this point in time that we move the dual language program into a lottery process for grades pre-K through 5th grade. And I do want to make the distinction, we would only be admitting students on the English side, and that's why Ken Lane's here to keep me honest, on the English side of the dual language program, pre-K through 1st grade, due to the requirements that students will have met by the time they are in 1st grade and being able to keep up after that point. But for the Spanish side, we would do a lottery from pre-K through grade 5. The impact also would be, instead of people sleeping outside for those kindergarten seats, would also be that they would move from a waiting list to a waiting pool. And so we would have that same approach where whenever you applied for the dual language seat, you would have an equal chance of getting in, regardless of when you applied. Another big change, dual language has kept a waiting list that rolls over from year to year to year, sometimes resulting in central registration or DCS reaching out to test students who are no longer even in our district at times. And so we would empty the waiting pool every year, just like we do with the current lottery process. And that's it.
Ms. Savage? Oh, Ms. Lang.
I have some questions about dual. In the lottery, would sibling preference be part of the lottery for K? Because currently it's not. Okay. Would children that are going into the dual language program have to give up a seat in their neighborhood seat?
So thank you, Jen. You're asking 2 questions that I didn't highlight in the presentation. Our intent is to treat the dual language lottery process exactly the same that we treat our magnet lottery process. So that would result in those students being able to claim a regular seat in their regular school and keep their name in the waiting pool for a dual language seat. And I nodded my head to your previous question, but the answer was yes, is what I should have said.
And so I kind of, is dual language a magnet school?
Dual language is not a magnet school, it is a themed program, is how I would describe it. Our magnet schools went through a federal grant process that would make it qualify as a magnet, and so, you know, even though we include Kinlane in our meetings that we're really having theme-based discussions as opposed to specific magnet.
Should dual be part of that process, become a magnet, if it acts like a magnet?
Not necessarily. Go ahead.
I was going to say, explain that what started out as magnet with magnet money, maybe you could explain that. So we call it magnet,
But the reason they are magnets is because they went through, just like the high school, they went through a magnet school application process, but it's no longer. Just like the high school is no longer funded by the federal government, neither are our current elementary magnet schools.
And that's the only reason I brought it up, because people think that we're still in the magnet system with them, whether money or not. It's just that's how it came to be. So that's...
Actually, maybe the other flip side of the question is more to the point, which is, if there's not, is there magnet money that's tied to magnet? Why do we
There's a very small general fund line that is used to match the funding that we receive for some grant support, which is through the TLQP, okay? And so we have a very small line. That line also pays for the magnet brochures and the information that we put out for that and the lottery support that's necessary.
So, Ms. Lang, is your question about whether dual should be a magnet more about should it be treated identically to the schools that we do call magnets? And maybe they could all be called themed programs? I mean, it seems to me like we're using this word magnet, but it doesn't really have any meaning anymore, unless there's something I don't know.
The only reason it is a magnet is because it draws students from all across the city, which dual language does do. But that's really the distinction of what a magnet school is supposed to be.
We also cap at 24, just like the magnets cap at 24. So there's more than just pulling from other districts that also would qualify it to be a themed and or magnet program. It's just...
It looks like Mr. Hogan wants to weigh in.
Just in terms of funding, the funding kind of evaporated, but to Cecily's point, we're not getting extra aid.
No,
it's
we
just a
understand
general
that.
fund allocation.
That's it.
That's all.
I understand that.
And if what you're talking about, because you just said it now, is that we've talked back when I was the Delaware rep, was to try to get the dual language program, in a sense, treated sort of the same way. It both seemed from an administrative standpoint crazy to have extra rules, and then the confusion that is engendered by that. And so if there wasn't a separate funding stream that was coming out of the feds, maybe we could find a name, in a sense, that is applicable to all 4 schools. And in that sense, we sort of streamline it, because I think part of the confusion is, I mean, Jen knows that school inside out, but part of the confusion for other people is they really don't understand it. You know, is it neighborhood? Is it this? Is it that? And how the rules are so.
So it looks like Ms. Roach is next.
I guess I'm wondering, since there's no longer particular federal money associated with magnet schools, if there's any reason that we can't, if it's just a matter of nomenclature, to term dual also a magnet school. Because I think magnet is a term that members of the public understand.
So there are some benefits to identifying yourself as a magnet program. So one of the things, and this is just the benefit of me just recently meeting with my magnet and theme principals, is there are certification procedures that you can go through to become certified as a high-quality magnet school that can afford you connections to particular professional development opportunities, resources, school visits, et cetera, and we're just on the ground floor of exploring that. And we are including Dr. Lane in those conversations as a part of the dual language program. So we're looking at that. So at this point, I wouldn't feel comfortable having a discussion about stepping away from the magnet as our description of these schools. But as we continue that research, we can further the conversation and then be able to talk more effectively about whether or not dual language would constitute going into being called a magnet or just being identified as a theme or having a common term.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Smith.
Right, and I was going to say, well, two things that's really important, and is that there still is, I mean, you're talking about magnet money that's coming from the state, right? Because there still is magnet money at the state level. It's something that schools have to ask for and have legislative support for. So I don't know how much of that we get, but it's still there. It's just not like the federal money.
Okay.
They're not sending it down the hill.
We
We'll
have to
we'll
go
walk up
after
the
it.
hill,
We
yeah.
have to go after it. That's the way that my understanding is that it works. But the other thing is, you know, you have to remember why magnet schools came into being, and it was to diversify, to integrate, to desegregate schools. And so I don't know if we'll ever have that kind of, funding from the feds ever again. I doubt it. But I think, but for the reasons that you mentioned, we may not want to give up quite yet the name without some great deal of further, exploration.
Thank you. Dr. Brandon.
Cicely answered my question, because I tended to agree with Ann. You know, we haven't technically been magnet in quite a while. We haven't received funds from the government in quite a while. And so I tended to agree with Ann that maybe we should seriously consider or think about pulling away from it. But based on Cicely's last dialogue, I guess maybe they can do some more exploration and find out if we should or we shouldn't. But
and I just want to add that dual, now it's much better, it's much easier to explain, but as a parent, I can't tell you how people have no idea what dual language specialty program means. They have no idea that it's district-wide. They have no idea. It's, they know what a magnet kind of means. They have no idea what the specialty program means. So I'm constantly telling people it's open enrollment. I'm constantly telling them that's how you do it. So, thank you. And it's also
Ms. Smith and Ms. Savage.
So just back on this desegregation piece, to what extent do we still use the magnet school around, conceptually to diversify, whether it's economically, whether it's racially, or for equity purposes? So I'm just simply asking.
No, I was going to say, if Jeff were here, so it's sort of like the high school. So we cannot, we can no longer, and if it certainly was federal-wise, we could no longer under the magnets system make determinations based on race. So instead, we could do it based on,
Right.
people's backgrounds in terms of.
But again, my question is, and
Right.
mine is, sorry, all those adjectives, but is it still to achieve a particular purpose? If it's not, to what degree is the magnet concept in play?
So I think what right now, honestly, what our magnet programs and even our dual language programs do for our families is it's our way of offering our families a choice. That's the first thing that it does. And then as a result of that, our families who choose other programs other than their neighborhood schools populate these schools. And we looked at in May what the demographic breakdowns of were those schools, and we noticed that Ash represents is the school whose population represents what the district looks like as a whole, and Toast and Montessori go to the other extremes to some degree.
Okay.
So futuristically, let's say we get our 3 middle schools all equitable, is that the right word? Then we could offer that choice, more choices.
In terms of theme?
Well, yes, in teams.
Middle schools.
What? Okay, well, I'm just...
Well, she's not too far ahead, because that was our conversation in our magnet meeting, or our theme meeting was, we're trying to reinvigorate the magnet themes at the elementary level to feed into what? And so we had that conversation at Cabinet after I met with the magnet school principals about how we gradually get to that point. And so if we're reinvigorating themes K-1-2, by the time those K-1-2 kiddos are ready to walk into whatever our middle school configuration is at that point in time, hopefully by then we will have figured out how we begin to match that so that there's not a gaping hole between what happens in elementary and within what happens in the high school.
Dr. Brandon.
But my question might go a little deeper. Are your what is it, 4 magnet schools?
3 magnet schools in the dual.
3 magnets, are they really exercising the theme?
So what my principals are trying to do.
Are they really? Because I know for a fact, 2 of them I know for a fact are not.
So what is happening?
Ash might be, but it can't
And
be.
honestly, Ash has worked really hard since Mr. Engelhardt has gotten into that role to bring that theme back. And even Mr. Engelhardt would say, we've been discussing, how do you get a more structured, integrated curriculum and program, and what would that be? And he's been researching Oxfam and all these other programs that are in place to begin to see what he can build into his school. The principal at Toast is brand new, and she knows that the key to Coast removing themselves from priority status is getting back to engaging students into the school's theme. And so they're looking at those pieces as well. Montessori is in the process of having all of their teachers and TAs trained in the Montessori philosophy so that they're effectively integrating their theme into their schools. So I think it's a work in progress for all of our principals who happen to be new in their roles to begin to rebuild the theme so that it's actually not just a layer that sits on top of the school, but is truly integrated into the instruction of what's happening.
Yeah, because this was part of my reason for agreeing with Ann. We're carrying that title magnet, but we're just so far from the base and have been. I've been on this board 8 years, and it's just drifting, so you wonder why bother. But looks like you folk are trying to dig a little deeper to get things back on track. Because if you're going to carry the title, even though you're not getting the money, you could at least exercise the themes, make that connection.
And I just want to add that dual language definitely is adhering to the themes, and we're now going to do report cards of our Spanish language with Fidelity, and so it's getting better and I think better. So for dual, and we're looking into the middle school as well as how that translates.
Can I ask another question? How is the enrollment for the dual language? Is that up, or is it, because I just heard you say a lot of people don't know. And I don't know, I think I tend to have to...
It's, I think, 24 per class, except 5th grade, I believe, is 19 in that.
Because a lot of people do know about that this is one school
it's
that
one
we have.
Well, it's one classroom, right?
Yeah.
So siblings, families take up 60 to 70%, of those spots every year, with only a few new families that can get in.
Okay, so the enrollment is up for the school. It's way up.
They
There's
worked
waiting lists, I'm sure.
Right, and they worked over the last few years. There was a big push to make sure we get our native Spanish speakers who were coming in from other countries to go directly into dual, and that has helped in our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes.
Because we talked about this last year, not last year, Sue, but some years ago, about expanding Delaware, that dual language program, expanding it. I don't know who has that ball in their hands, but I think that's something, because it's really, that whole program is very advantageous.
The state has also mandated bilingual programs if you have a class of that certain size, and right now we have to look at that in the near future.
I am going to ask Dr. Lane to speak to.
Certainly one of the issues, like we have 19 right now at 5th grade, and part of the issue there is English speakers, native English speakers, can't enter after a certain time. So sometimes the numbers are down from there. I don't think tonight's really the night to talk about the expansion of the program. So while there are some pockets of a couple of students missing, at the lower grades we certainly fill it right away from waiting lists. But we do tend, and I know years ago when I visited schools in Yonkers, when I went to see Montessori themed schools down there, they had the same issues, but because the district was so big and they had 3 Montessori themed buildings out of the 24, and they were, full schools, not like a dual. So certainly moving forward, there should be some thought on a building, because it does present different challenges having a program within as it relates to neighborhoods, in which students aren't getting in because. So I think there probably is room for expanding the program.
Ms. Savage.
I actually have a much simpler question. It's not into this, like, how are we going to restructure our whole life question? And it's a question I asked you before, Seth, and I never got the answer whether I missed it and I'm sure you researched it and I just missed it, which is last year we went from waiting pool to waiting, well, we went from waiting list to waiting pool, and then we went back to waiting list for pre-K for good reason. And at that time, I asked the question, is there a reason we have to have waiting pool for the other grades? Because what's confusing to parents is that there's both. And so I had said, and Dr. Lane will recall this is one of our first conversations we had earlier, I was just like, I don't care which one it is as long as it's one, because people are super confused. And so you were going to find out if we have to have a waiting pool because of magnet.
And the way the magnet guidelines read is that you just have to have, and the same thing with the guidelines for pre-K, when you have more students who want to fill seats than available seats, you have to have a way of filling those seats that affords an equal opportunity to everyone who has interest in it. There are no specifications, as far as federal or state regulations as to how we do that work. So I really believe that the waiting list and the waiting pools are constructs that we created to navigate this process.
So why is it the administration's recommendation that we continue to have a waiting pool above pre-K rather than going to a waiting list all the way through, which would be simpler to understand?
So what I'll say from the experience this year moving to the waiting list for pre-K, it is a great deal of work to manage the waiting list because of the number of sites that we have, both pre-K and then each grade level at the magnet school that we would add to that. And so the nice thing about the waiting pool for our magnet schools is it's a very easy way to maintain everyone who wants to stay in 3 different, because this is an option that we offer our families. If I do not get into my first choice magnet school, I'm allowed to stay in the waiting pool for all 3 of those magnet schools. And so basically, I have an opportunity to get into any of them at any point in the school year. Trying to maintain those folks on 3 different rate lists for every grade level, really on our end, I think it's just a clerical and management benefit more than anything else.
So then the flip question I have. So I understand now why the waiting list becomes a ministerial nightmare. So why not choose to just get rid of wait lists and go to waiting pools?
So the challenge with waiting pools for pre-K is if we have to wait every time to run a lottery for all the open pre-K seats, our pre-K seats stay open for too long. Whereas magnet seats are typically filled to the gills, and so there's always, room and space and time to wait to run those. And so those really are the 2 distinctions. And I get it. I get making it clearer for families, but I think it's very challenging to manage one versus the other in those systems.
So then it sounds as long as we're going to have both the model of neighborhood schools and then magnet-type schools, including dual, then it seems as if what you're saying is we need to stick with both kinds of waiting things. And then it's incumbent on us to try to explain that.
Right. And I think, I've only been doing, and hopefully I'm walking away from it soon, the lottery for a year and a little bit. And there may, as we go through this work and we continue to think through this work, we may be able to figure out a different way. But for right now, this is the system that we think we can effectively and efficiently and with the most accuracy keep track of what we're trying to do.
So I'm just going to add a follow-up that I would like to ask you that question another time, and I'd like to get a philosophical answer rather than an administrative answer. If there's a reason that it's better for our district, and if it's a reason it's better for our families to have a waiting list for our magnets, that makes sense to me. If it's because it's too much of an administrative burden to do what we think is right, that's not a really good answer to me. That is the answer, and that's fine. I appreciate the candor. But if, in fact, we believe a waiting list is preferable, then I'd like us to solve the problem. If it's not,
I actually believe the waiting pool is preferable.
So let's answer the question in that way.
But what I would say is it's not beneficial to pre-kindergarten to do a waiting pool. And so trying to make those 2 things, trying to make the magnet...
No, I'm sorry.
No,
but
I'll let you extend
I'm
time
just
if
going
you
to
need
actually cut myself off at the time, but that's okay for you to say. For you to say philosophically, we prefer a waiting pool above pre-K. That's great, but explain why. Don't say it's because it's too hard to do the waiting list, because I don't think that's a good enough reason to do something we don't think is right.
I have one question. For the one thing too is the neighborhood preference for dual. That would that be a 0.5 neighborhood preference as well? Just because of our small numbers, if we have one spot, no one else from the city possibly. If siblings was the top one, right, weighted the most, and then it goes to neighborhood, and we have one spot, we really do not, and that's happened, as you know, we would not be pulling from the entire city. Okay.
Can you just remind me, it was my understanding, and maybe I've misplaced this, that the sibling versus neighborhood swaps, so that in pre-K, the preference is sibling and then neighborhood, but in kindergarten and up, the preference is, she's shaking, nobody else is looking very confident.
Say that again.
My understanding had been, and maybe I got this wrong,
Right.
that when the magnet started, there was granted neighborhood preference because it was fair to those families whose neighborhood school was being removed, that they should get preference there, and that neighborhood trumped sibling. And that for pre-K, it's the other way around. Is that not right?
It's consistent for all.
It's consistent for all.
It's
Okay.
sibling, then neighborhood.
Okay.
So, yeah. Well, I have a question too, so. Okay, let's make a motion to extend for 5 minutes. Motion by, I'll make the motion. Ms. Smith seconds. All those in favor? That looks like everybody except Roach and Brandon. Wow, okay. Ms. Roach, are you in or out? Okay, it's unanimous then. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
I have a question about, is it, because it sounds like our lotteries are, they're done by hand kind of thing. Okay, because what I'm trying to do is understand, do we have like some sort of electronic system? Okay, so.
So when the lotteries run, it goes into a database, it runs, and so the beautiful thing that the database does is it can put it into a waiting pool, or it can generate a beautiful wait list. It's
Okay.
up to us how we do that work.
So, because I was
But
just,
then after the lottery is run, if somebody comes in and wants to get into a pre-K program, they are manually added to a waiting list.
that's the difficult. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Okay, so first I have a very specific question, which is why run one lottery for 3 and 4-year-olds? Isn't it two different things, two different opportunities, two different?
There's no reason why you couldn't run all of them at the same time. We run the 4-year-olds, we run Magnet all at the same time, so the database can be set up to run all of those programs at once and not pay 3 separate fees for our lottery consultant to come and do that work.
Oh, that's all you
That's
were
it.
talking about?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Just same date, same time. Okay, all right, I got it. So I had a philosophical question around lotteries, which is an extension of Vicky's, or Ms. Smith and Ms. Adler's response, Ms. Smith's question. So the original goal was diversity, and you can't use diversity as a component when selecting students for the lottery. However, you can look at the results of a lottery and then backtrack and figure out what you could change to make it more representative of the population, like Toast. So that was my question last time, and I understand this may not be the time to answer that question, but are we looking at how to possibly adjust or make adjustments so that it could be closer to what the theoretical goal is?
I would say at this time, no, we're not looking to make any adjustments to the current parameters around how families get to select the lottery. So everything would remain in place. I think we did have a very extensive discussion in May about the equity issues of our current lottery process, and once you have a sibling in a school, how that increases your likelihood to be in that school and reduces the amount of, could reduce the amount of diversity in that school based on who chooses that school in the first place. Same thing with the neighborhood that some of our schools are located in. That's also going to impact the 0.5 mile radius that provides neighborhood preference. So there are some things in place that make that work a little bit harder, but not impossible to diversify our schools. And I don't think, like I said, after a year of doing this and just trying to get a handle on what we say we do and making sure that that's actually what we do, that I would feel comfortable moving any faster than I'm currently moving, I would say.
Got it. And so who are you passing it off to?
I hope Tim Fowler as Director of People Personnel Services with oversight from the Assistant Superintendents.
Oh, he doesn't know yet.
It's my vision.
All right, well,
Do not say that to Tim Fowler. I don't want to lose. No, he knows. He knows. He knows that it was supposed to go to him this year, but we knew it was in such condition that it was not to be passed off.
Okay, I'll be patient then. Any further questions on lottery? Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Curriculum report. Ms. Bechtel, we've missed you.
I'm here.
Funny, Bill, I heard that. It's not 11 o'clock.
Right. Hey, we're 20 minutes
It's
ahead
not
of
even
schedule.
10 o'clock.
And Bill always, he reminds me, Karen, 6 slides, 7 slides, not 24.
And how many do you have this evening?
I think there are 8, but that includes the question slides. So, all right. So here we go. A little curriculum presentation about the work that we've done in 2015, 2016. Just a reminder of our categories in the cycle of review, which you should have. It's your English language arts, math, science, history and social sciences, our visual and fine arts, PE and health, world languages, career and technical education, and English as a new language. We have taken all our areas and placed them in those categories. We have a cycle of review, which seems to be really working. We're in year 3 of the cycle, and it seems like a really organized way to look at curriculum and revise curriculum in a timely way and stay control of our budget for those purposes. So we have year 1 of analysis and planning. We do go into our development and revision, development, revision, implementation. Year 1, we implement and monitor. Year 2, we implement and monitor. Year 3, and then we turn around and we're back at the beginning where we do a full review. A few highlights from the report that I sent you. This report was pretty comprehensive. I know that probably in some areas when you were reading it, it may not have flowed quite as nicely as I would have liked, but that's because I had to gather that information from a whole variety of sources that had a different way of looking at things. Big highlight is the adoption of the elementary resources and implementation. So we adopted the Wonders program at K2 and the Envisions math program at 3 through 5. That's going along beautifully. We have the vendors coming in and doing some half-day trainings with folks in those resources. It's been greeted very positively by staff. We are looking at moving forward to bring the K2 math in probably before the end of this year. We think that we can do that. We are going to go out for another pilot, however, for the 3 through 5 literacy. The math, we're going to stay with the program that we adopted at the 3-5 level because there's sort of a natural spiral, and you can't really split the program that you're using as your base. The literacy program, however, could be actually a different one than Wonders, or it may be the Wonders one. It doesn't matter as much that we're different. We just need to make sure that the teachers are invested in what it is. The implementation of the new social studies standards is moving along quite nicely. A lot of good work going on there this past summer. I love the fact that we have really integrated the literacy standards into that, particularly at the middle school level. We've been doing a lot of work around that. We carried on the social studies studio work. Jen Houlihan's running that work, and every time it happens, she just tells me how great it feels to be an instructional supervisor doing that work. We've done some integration of some literacy and social studies at the elementary level. So our implementation of those standards is moving along well. We did a science review last year. We have work to do to fill our gaps. Our one big holdup there is that the state has not yet approved the new science standards. However, my understanding is that it's imminent. It may even, I think the Board of Regents might even have met like yesterday or something. So it's supposed to be like any time. So hopefully they did that. If not, it should be coming up soon. We can count on the next generation science standards, so we're not allowing that to slow us up too much. This is phase one for the visual and fine arts. My art chair, Kate Wright, and the music chairs, Josephine Amore and Ed Newell, have already gotten to work with their staff, and one of the October PD days brought their staff together to look through the plan, what it is that they need, how they need to approach it. I think everybody's been board approved to engage in this process of looking at our curriculum in those areas. And CTE, the highlights are about, we have the 4 endorsed programs, and then working on those 5 additional programs to bring those up to speed. The state has had a lot of fun revising standards. So we have changes, and it's why curriculum is a living, dynamic documents, or so they should be. But part of that reason is because things change. We need to be responsive in how we're looking at our curriculum. ELA, the state, the Common Core has unfortunately gotten a very bad name across our country. And the reality is that educators, by and large, do like the Common Core. It's unfortunate the rollout has been poor, and the fact that it has been tied to assessment and evaluation so quickly has unfortunately hurt what is really very solid standards. And I do believe almost all educators will tell you that. So now New York State is saying, well, we're going to go back and look. We're going to look at the Common Core. We're going to be responsive to your concerns. And so we're changing 55% of them. But those changes, 55% sounds like an awful lot, but it's not. Because the changes are focused primarily at P2 with some developmental things, and that's appropriate. The big change is that they're going to combine the information, the reading for information and the reading for literature. So that's like 2 bands of this, these standards, which all of a sudden brings it to 55%. That's why that figure is so high. Math, there's been, they say 60% has changed. There's been some movement. Again, that attention to developmental readiness, which is a good thing. And then moving, I think, sort of across the year where those standards need to fall, and then from year to year. So really some nice work there, and I think that needed to be done. Social studies, we're implementing the C3 framework. We're looking at the next generation science standards, which will be slightly adapted and tweaked for New York State. And the arts, music, theater, dance, visual, and media arts, those standards are all undergoing a revision. With implementation, they have a very aggressive timeline implementation plan for spring 2017. So really our fine arts review and those standards coming out will be great. And they're probably going to be very much based on the national standards in those areas. Okay, enough of that academic conversation. And move on to budget, Bill's favorite thing. So for 2016-17, we have in the general fund about $55,000 dedicated to curriculum writing, and the grants for the DSIP about almost $20,000 for that same purpose. The designated work you'll see below is in for curriculum review, art, music, ENL. Our writing will also be in art, music, ENL, because we are in that beginning phases of looking to pull that together. And we have to come back to our core areas constantly, especially in response to the new standards. I explained, it seems like a lot of money, but I think in my report, I have in here that when you have 3 people per team, that are looking at, say, a grade level, 3 people in the 6th grade looking at that, and then you times that by 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you have 9 people, they each work 15 hours, and all of a sudden that money adds up. So I put the hours in the report, so you'll see how that budget lays out. And then, what do I have here? Oh, my report in the back of the graphs, and thank you again, Anne, for helping us with that last year, build that framework, because that has been great. What's in the back is actually just a very, very close approximation. Lori McKenna has asked our scheduling person who works in Kent's office to do some work around looking at our enrollments in the high school. And so in conjunction with that, we're using my form and we're doing Lori's work, and I didn't have that complete information yet, but my developing and well-developed designations are firm. We have had a nice movement this year from our overall well-developed curricula from 37% to 44%. And in our priority areas, well-developed 51 to 59, and when we add in the developing, we're at 100%. I mean, all our core curricula is undergoing work. People are looking at it. The teachers are using it. We're interacting with it, which is how curriculum should be. And that does it for me.
Questions for Ms. Bechtel? Ms. Lang.
In your budget, I was wondering if there were resources or funding for new curriculum of science-based projects or anything of that nature. Is that something that's been considered in the science curriculum?
The resource piece is not included in this. The curriculum budget is strictly for curriculum development and revision.
Okay.
Once areas do their review, they may make a recommendation about an additional resource need, and then I collect that. I'll collect that February, March, and work out the available funds that we have. Like, I outlined in here how much those ELA and math resources are going to cost. So we have to look and see where we can get the money to do the things we need to do.
So thank you for being my shield. That was actually what my question was, because originally it was in your report on the SBU.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hundreds, thousands, whatever, for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, at what point will you know what kind of, first of all, how much, is that part of the textbook sort of line in our budget?
Mm-hmm.
And how much smaller is our textbook line than the money that would be for the math and the ELA work, the curriculum you want? I mean, what kind of disparity are we talking about?
Well, the district textbook line, I think I have about 100, I started with, I think, around $157,000 in that budget, and some of that has been spent, but I have really not very much, because I'm trying to be conscious that I know I have this big purchase. The way that we do business here is that each of the buildings have a per student allocation of textbook funds. I've already spoken with all the principals about these future expenses, and need to provide them with sort of a per pupil idea too about that this is coming up, because we not only have the math, what I'd like to purchase inside this year is the math, and we have to get for elementary, the consumables for the literacy program, and then look to see what we're going to do with that 3 through 5 literacy. Can we use some money from this year and some money from next year? And also there is money that comes for those. It's not only textbook, it's IDEA and it's Title I. So last year, with the combination of all that funding, we were able to get everything that we needed.
So given I guess the better question that I could ask would be, given the large expense that you want for what you believe are good materials, will you know, say the beginning of 2017, we have a handle on whether or not you're going to need some additional money in the general fund budget for that, or are you anticipating being able to find the money in a different manner?
The way that
I saw you look over a bill.
I think the way that Bill has explained it to me is sometimes these one-time purchases, are far easier to manage in a given fiscal year, because right.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love when I hear this purchase is easier, so that's enough. I got it.
He didn't give me the wink, though, so I hope I was on point there.
Ms. Slang?
So I really liked your field trip was incorporated in, I believe, the 4th grade to Tenbrook. I thought that was really great. And I just like to say we are in the capital of the state, so that those type of field trips and those type of things are innovative and are really great for all of our curriculum as well. And not trying to get into the weeds of an ENL 2nd grade field trip to the capital to do an essay on presidents or governors. I'm sorry, 'cause we don't. As well, and so I thank you for starting that creative, kind of coming back to that creativeness in the curriculum, and just hope that that is something that you can expand up, and that works really well, so thank you for putting that in.
I don't know if you noticed that we have the 5th grade Challenger field trip now as well in the science area. So those are, this was something that Dr. Wilkins and I sat down, and we really wanted to have sort of that defined field trip for a grade level. Maybe I didn't put it in here. I thought I did. Yeah, it's at the bottom of page 3. It's the Challenger Mission Simulation field trip, where the teachers are going to get some training and actually be able to embed it. It's not just a one shot. It can be embedded in the work of science over a period of time.
Okay, that is exactly what I'm talking about, so thank you very much, and it's great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Great presentation. Okay, board member items. Does anybody have a board member item? Okay, board committee reports. We did have a facilities committee meeting and a policy meeting. Go ahead, Ms. Savage, are you ready?
I am not prepared, but I am ready. We did meet, policy met. We talked about the 2 that we talked about tonight. Those are the easy ones because those I can remember. What else did we talk about? We, as I believe everyone knows, have engaged the NYSBA policy folk to redo a electronic comparison between our policy manual and their model policy manual to identify areas of discrepancy so that we can try and deal with our backlog of policies that are not in compliance with our policy on policies, which just makes me laugh every time. So we got an update on those. We are expecting to get a report back from them. Hopefully, Paula, look at me and tell me if I'm saying the right thing. Late November, we expect to get that back. And we also took an initial look, and I'm actually going to hit her on the spot. Karen, we were trying to re-engage with the RTI policy. Have you guys talked about, has anybody raised that with you? The RTI policy, which you wrote beautifully about a year ago but never got adopted, we're trying to get that back in the wings once we get NYSBA's return back so we can see how that compares to the standard policy, because I know that's been on hold for a long time. I think those were the highlights. We spent a lot of time on the Narcan policy.
Facilities, we covered the high school project. We developed a change order resolution, which is on the board agenda for the next board meeting. And we
did an update on the 50 North Lark, the capital project, and we reviewed, there were some principal requests for some small items, a couple on fencing, one on changes to some indoor locks, so we reviewed those. And it was a pretty aggressive agenda. There's probably 3 or 4 other things. We were very busy that night.
We were, although I can't think of anything else that we covered. Yeah, I think we just, a lot of high school and a lot of 50 North Lark. Any other board committee reports?
Government relations, we have our meeting on the 23rd, I believe at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we have 2 substantial meetings coming up at the end of this month with the state listing our 3 priorities that we've laid out to lobby for or advocate for prior to the budget, which is E&L funding, pre-K streamlined funding, and foundation aid as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board committee reports? Okay, other business. Ms. Savage.
Dr. Brandon, would you like to go first?
okay.
All right, so mine's not nearly that much fun. So, ladies and gentlemen of the school board, I wanted to raise with you the board goals question. So you will recall that on September 29th, we met with Sherry Kelleher and we had a workshop on the subject of board goals. We succeeded in drafting those board goals, and they have been going around by email in the last couple of days, and I would like to query you on where we would like to go with those. My proposal, which I put before you, is that we put them on the agenda for discussion next time in December, and then therefore they are prepared for adoption on the January, thank you. Wow, I wish it was July. January 2nd, as part of our organizational meeting. And so if people are comfortable with that, I just need any additional comments on the board goals in the next, little while.
Okay, so not necessarily here now.
It's up to you guys.
I
If you
mean-
have ones that you want to talk about now, we can do that, or you can just send them to me by email. It's up to you.
I think I want to comment publicly that for the board goal that I helped to draft with Mr. Bruce about how the board operates in meetings. I know there'd been some commentary that we'd like to just basically just refer to our policies manual, and I think a link to the policies manual might be a useful addition, but I'd also like to leave the term respect in the goals themselves, because I think respect is so important that it needs to be articulated explicitly in the goal statement. That's it.
Okay, I heard that, but I just wanted to clarify. You said policy manual. We have a policy manual. We also have a procedure manual. You meant the procedure
I
manual, right?
mean, I couldn't remember the name of the exact the other manual.
Yeah, got it.
Thank you.
The team operating procedures.
The bomb, okay.
Any further discussion on this topic? No. Okay, Dr. Brand. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? General assent, yes. Dr. Brandon.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to the superintendent, right now we're doing communications with the community on the 50 North Lark. Okay, but since 50 North Lark and Elk are going to be on for the 10th, should we, they're just asking this now, should we also be mentioning Elk in that too, so that they're familiar with what's going on with that, or do we just be quiet on that? Because I only mentioned it because Ann mentioned earlier that we've been criticized for piecemealing things and not bringing it all at one time. So I'm thinking if we're familiarizing people with the background on 50 North Lark and what we need, maybe it wouldn't be bad to include Elk too, since both of them will be the same day.
You must have been at my presentations, because I've already included them in the presentations as a possibility, since we were discussing them at different times, so already done.
Super.
Already done.
Great.
Okay, any other business? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Ms. Smith, second by Ms. Roach. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoy the longer vacation. I know you guys are here Wednesday, but it's still Thursday, Friday. I meant the workers, the worker bees.